Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Dieppe City Council. It is June 24th. What's it now? June 24th is. I think we need to salute our francophone friends in Quebec who are celebrating Saint Jean-Baptiste Day. So welcome. So starting out, I'll begin by saying the city of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq. So dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So welcome to all of you. So we are now at item 4, call to order. Number 5, confirmation of quorum. I think everyone is here. And then some. Item 6, conflict of interests. Is there anyone, does anyone have any conflict of interest to declare? No, okay. Adoption of the agenda, item 7. Motion, Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Mélissa Janet. On the question. No, seeing no questions, those in favor signify by saying aye, against, nay. The motion is adopted. Item number 8, inquiries by council members. And as usual, we start with the, oh, sorry, there's nothing. So sorry, 8.1, inquiries by council members, Kodiak Regional RCMP. And as usual, Inspector Farah is here with us tonight. Welcome. Good evening, Your Worship. I just have a few things to share with you this evening. We want to warn the public about cryptocurrency scams. We want to make sure that people are to be extra vigilant when investing their money. So in an era where digital communication is continuing to gain in popularity, it's important to be careful and do your research. The rise of cryptocurrency and other digital investment opportunities has been linked to an increase in scams and fraudulent schemes. So be vigilant. So cases were recently reported here in the region and in the province where people pose as officials from government agencies, either from local, provincial, or federal governments, and they encourage people to invest. They're encouraging people to invest in cryptocurrency. So these scammers often use convincing language and sophisticated tactics, including fake endorsements and seemingly legitimate links to lure unsuspecting investors. So we just want to tell you that it's very difficult sometimes to see the difference between a fraud and something that's real. So what we urge you not to click on links found in unsolicited messages or social media posts. And we also suggest that you to verify these opportunities are legitimate through official government channels. So go in person, check the websites and so forth. Avoid clicking suspicious links, conduct thorough research, and consult a financial advisor as well. Make sure that the advice that you get is professional. The federal government has a lot of information on this, so I invite you to go on their website. Just look under finance and fraud, and you'll get some more details online. And we are planning major events upcoming in in the community. So Canada Day festivities, La Fête des Acadiens, the YQM festival, and there are a number of other major events. We're working with municipalities and with other organizations to make sure that things play out smoothly. And just an update on one of our files from the general investigation section. So a 30-year-old man was sentenced to a life imprisonment. He is prohibited from carrying firearms for 10 years rather. He conducted, on December 3rd, we had reported that a suspect had gone to that he had uttered threats against a business in Champlain Center. Now, luckily, no one was physically injured in that incident, but there were a lot of shaken witnesses. And that's just one file among a number of files that we're working on. But I just wanted to point out that the general investigation section is very busy. And in recent years, I've seen a number of complex files, including 5 sexual aggression cases, child luring, and serious assault involving weapon, among others. So the people in that section are working very hard. They're very devoted, and they're really working tirelessly to help the victims and to prevent other incidents. So if you have any questions or on any other topic, I'm available to take questions. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Jeannet. Thank you, Your Worship. This is a situation that you're aware of, but on Merlot and Thomas Street, in that area, in the last 6 months, we've seen more and more people coming on foot to check that, car doors are open and so forth. These are people that are walking on property, and they're leaving kind of suspicious objects behind. And so people, are noticing these things with their security cameras the next day. But 2 weeks ago, someone opened a fence while people were at home, and they went into the backyard, and the residents were very afraid. So I reminded these residents to always report incidents, because that helps you come up with an action plan to prevent further incidents. So here's my question. My question has to do with that area, that there's more and more traffic in that area, more foot traffic. So could you patrol that area a little bit more often, maybe? So Thomas Street, and it's also a very straight street, and people travel there very quickly. But there's also more pedestrian traffic. So can I pass that message on? Yes, and I did receive your email. We talked about this, and people did the right thing. They called us, they reported the incident, and you always have to be. You also have to take precautions. I know that I grew up here as well, but we're growing as a city, so you have to keep your eyes open. And if you see something that seems suspicious, somebody who doesn't seem to be from the environment, you have to be aware. And at the patrol level, we will always dispatch people or cars to the most urgent sites. It's like a hospital where they prioritize emergencies. But if you give us good descriptions and tell us if the suspect was armed, or if they were wearing the clothing that they're wearing, those details help us to maximize the chance of catching them in the act or shortly thereafter. So the best thing is prevention. And I know we're always reminding people to lock their doors and to always be on the lookout, and it's and that's the case throughout the city. In terms of patrols, we try to be sporadic in the way that we send them out, and I know that there are issues in that area, so I've pointed it out to our patrollers, and thank you for promoting our message as well, to encourage people to report these things. you know, we work a lot with our dispatch center. They're the ones who take the calls to make sure that they take the details down, they create files so that we really know what's happening and that we can prioritize the calls. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, let's move on then to item 8.2, public presentation, amendments, municipal development plan bylaw Z9. We have a presentation. So on bylaw Z9, 2017-11, this is a project on 253 Acadie Avenue. So Nassim Sidotman. Good evening. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors and everybody here tonight. So this presentation is being done, it involves a request for variances. Nassim, could you go in front of the microphone so that the interpreters can hear you? Thank you. All right, so this public presentation is being done as part of a rezoning application, including amendments to the municipal development plan and the zoning bylaw. And this involves a future development, a residential and commercial project. So we have Mr. Robillard, who's here with us tonight, and representatives of Quest Capital. That's the company that applied for the rezoning, and that is sponsoring this development. So, and after the presentation, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So in this presentation, we'll start by looking at the timetable, including critical dates. We'll provide some context and a brief description of the proposed project. And we'll talk about the non-compliant aspect or the variance that's requested. And then we'll end with the proposed amendments. In terms of the timetable, so the process began on May 27th. After that, the public presentation was set for June 24th. The public hearing will be on September 9th, and the PAC meeting will be held on September 18th, and then Council will be asked to make a decision on October 15th at the public meeting. So this project involves 260 Normandy Street, the PID number 00673160, and it's zoned R2. Now, as you see, the lot in question in yellow is part of the property that will include 4 lots in total. The objective of this request is to rezone from R2 to CC to make a single entity so that they can accommodate the project. So the project being proposed is an angled building. There'll be part of the building on Acadie Avenue and another on Normandy Street. And as you can see, given the configuration, most of the lot, subject to rezoning, will be used for a driveway and a few parking spots. And this will allow us to respect a certain distance between this property and the neighboring properties. So this will be a 5-floor project with the commercial spaces on the Acadie Avenue part. Now, in terms of the environing or the zoning in the built environment, this is a zone that allows mixed use, commercial and residential and high density. On Normandy side is an RU zone, which allows residential use, including multifamily dwellings and up to 4 units per building. And then the R3 zone, which is essentially a residential zone of medium density. So this includes buildings of 3 to 4 stories. And it's also important to point out that the site borders the densification, the downtown densification area. And it's adjacent on the south side as well to a CR, so a commercial zone. And there are with a number of services and stores. And there is also a 7-story a residential building that's already been built. And because of the zoning, the urban fabric is quite heterogeneous, is quite mixed. So there are various sizes of buildings and various uses. Now, in terms of the variance, the project does not does not comply with paragraph 623I of the zoning bylaw, which stipulates that the width of the street frontage of a principal building must measure at least 75% of the lot frontage on all public streets. So as illustrated, what is under the 75% is, so this is a non-compliant project in terms of the bylaw. And it's because of the angle of the building. And this technical constraint is being used to justify the variance. It is difficult to reach the 75% figure. And it's so because of the angle of the building. So the proposed amendments are as follows. Amendment to the land use map. They want the change to be from residential to downtown zone. And then the amendment to the zoning bylaw would amend the zoning map of the city Dieppe, and it would be from a move from the urban residential RU to central business district commercial zone. So, I will now let Mr. Robillard speak, and then we'll see if there are any questions, and we'll try to answer them. Thank you, Kassim. All right, Mr. Robillard.
Merci Nassim pour la présentation.
Thank you, Nassim, for the presentation. So, Your Worship and councillors, I'm very happy to present this project today. This is a project that fits the vision that we have for Acadie Avenue. There is a strong demand for people who want to live in that area, especially people who want to use transit services. People want to be next to the market and so forth. And so this project will allow us to allow a large number of people with a variety of suites that we're going to be offering. And some of this we'll be able to keep some of the prices affordable with the smaller suites. And we'll have underground parking as well. So this will allow us more options on the site. So we worked with the planning department of the city of Dieppe to develop this concept. And we think that it will be very interesting for the community and for the city itself. Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Jeannet. Thank you, Your Worship. I always have 3 things that I look at in a project, and parking is a big one. So I'm happy to hear that there's an underground parking in this project. My second point is the space for the sidewalk. So Acadie is a busy there's there's a lot of wind in that area as well. But my question is, is there enough space to accommodate a wide sidewalk as well as trees so that we can, for people who are waiting for the bus, that we can protect them from the wind? Is the land big enough for that? Well, maybe Alexandre can explain. Mr. Girard? Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the question. So the minimum setback is 1 meter from Acadie Avenue. So, and that the project does meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. And on Normandie, the setback will be a little bit bigger, I think, so it'll be 1 meter as well. So we do want to encourage densification in the area, and that's why we're requiring a smaller setback. Okay, well, not a long time ago, residents told us, they were commenting on certain buildings on Champlain Street that, you felt like that they felt a bit claustrophobic when they were walking on the sidewalk. So is the sidewalk going to be larger than what we see on Champlain, or about the same thing? Well, it'll be the same thing. I think we'll be, we have a development guide for the city, which guides our decisions, but so we'll maintain the standard as it is, and in this case, we're not going to be getting more setback from Acadie. So the building will be set back 1 meter from the property line. So, but we'll take that into account in the longer term. Right, Councillor Gaudette, please. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question regarding the lot that's going to be rezoned. How much space is there between the house? There's a house right beside it. So if you look on the map number, right, so the distance will be 13.5 meters, I believe. And then the distance from the house, so that's and it's a multi-family dwelling. It's not a single family dwelling, it's a triplex. So the minimal standard is 3 meters. So, and we're talking here about 13.5 meters when the minimum distance is 3 meters. So we have a very reasonable space between the buildings. Right. Thank you. I don't see any further questions. Oh, Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. Since we're asking for a variance and for the adding of and rezoning, so by the time, will we have any light study, or will a light study or a shadow study rather be done with the addition of the extra floor? So just for clarification, we're not talking about a variance here. The variance would be with the facade that faces Normandie. But the building being proposed does not exceed the standard. So we're not going to be imposing a shadow study. And so the setback of the building of 13.5 meters, we don't see the need to have a shadow study conducted. If councillors think that it's necessary, if they want a shadow study to be done, you would be entitled to ask for one as well. Councillor Leboutier, does that answer your question? Okay, yes, that answered my questions. I think that you are the experts in this field there, so thank you. All right, anyone else?
Du conseil.
I don't see anyone else from council, so thank you for the details. Thank you, Kassim, for the presentation.
OK. 8.3.
8.3, public presentation on zoning bylaw Z10 2021-13, conditional use. 452 Amiro Street. Charles-Éric Landry will be presenting this project. Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, councillors. So here I'm going to be presenting the technical aspects of the project at 452 Amiro 2 and then the regulatory setting. And then the developer will also be able to be presenting his project as well, and he'll be able to defend his project. So we don't have any recommendations yet. I just want to remind that the recommendation will be made by the planning department for the PAC meeting this summer. So they will take a look at the technical aspect and the feedback that has been received as part of the public consultation, so including the public presentation this evening. So I'm going to start with the presentation outline. So just to mention, there are two changes that were made to this presentation since it was distributed among councillors, and I just wanted to mention it out of transparency. So we made certain adjustments. We'll start with the timelines, including critical dates, and then we'll provide some contextual information, so the surrounding area that the project is taking place in. And we'll be looking at the regulatory setting as well. And then we'll present the project itself, the technical aspects of it. In terms of the timetable, so then this is the second change. There was an error in terms of the date that you saw was April 24th, but it's actually May 28th. That's when the amendment process was launched. This is the public hearing tonight. There will be no decisions made tonight. On August 21st, the PAC meeting will study the question, and the PAC has power to make recommendations to council, and then council will be asked, has the power to consider those recommendations, to accept them or to reject them, and they will be asked to make a decision on September 9th. Now, with regard to the lot, this is we're looking at 452 Amiro. The PID is 7060261. The owner is Southwest Developments, and the applicant is Josh Lirette from Aura Construction Management. In terms of the context, we're being asked for approval of conditional usage, and it's not really a rezoning, it's conditional usage for the authorization of a multifamily dwelling made up of 152 units. And this is in an institutional zone located beside a cemetery. In the area, it's mainly R1 and R2 zone. These are two-family dwellings and single-family dwellings as well. In terms of the history, and in terms of for the historical zone, or the institutional zone, so from 2008 to 2021, Zone I allowed multifamily dwellings by right, but that was changed. So to give a bit more detail, this is a list of the different permitted uses in the institutional zone. So there's a big variety. There are usages that are more traditionally institutional, cemetery, place of worship, but there's also a large variety of commercial uses. So from parks, community gardens, exhibition centers, nursing homes. So there's a number of usages that are permitted. And I quoted the Community Planning Act as well there. So notwithstanding paragraphs 8.11a and 8.11b, any land, building, or structure may be used for the development of multi-unit dwellings, provided council approves said use pursuant to section 59 of the Community Planning Act. And so that's why we're here tonight. Council can approve or not approve this usage and can establish or can impose terms and conditions.
Au niveau de la contextualisation du projet encore.
Now, in terms of setting the context for the project, there are two access points being proposed onto Amiro Street. Amiro Street is one of the 5 arterial highways identified in the City of Dieppe's municipal plan. There's the Acadie Amiro, Dieppe Boulevard, Champlain, Dover, and Paul Street are the others. Now, the site plan proposed here, you can see that the lot size is 18,100 square meters. It has a 3,117.1 square meters floor area, which gives a 17.2% floor area ratio. The standard in the institutional zone is 50%. And this is just for the building, but the standard only applies to buildings in the institutional zone. The number of units being proposed is 152 and the number of stories is 5. There are 4 variances being requested, and the preliminary report that was distributed talked about 6 variances, but 2 of them were addressed in a site plan that came later. These are points that were easy to address and don't change the nature of the site itself. It was the width of the access driveways, but by making them one way, then we meet the requirements of the institutional zone. And there was 1 spot missing for bicycles, so that was modified on the site plan as well, on the site plan that you have in front of you. So these variances do not need to be approved. But the other variances include the height of 16.85 meters is being requested, whereas 15 meters is permitted in the institutional zone. The amenity area is in front of the building, between the building and the road, which is not permitted under the bylaw, but there is no driveway on the facade that opens up onto the street, and the longest side of the building is not facing the street either. Now, the natural features of the site, there are mature trees on the property. You could see that the proposed project would be located in the southeast corner of the lot. So it would be along the south and eastern properties. So that's where the development would be. There has been a tree study completed identifying the different trees of interest on the site. And the site plan does meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw in terms of the tree planting. The driveway, one of the 2 driveways that will use the driveway that was already in place. Now, the documents and the information that we've received, I just want to mention this quickly. We received all the normal documents, the site plan, the facade plan, the floor plans, the engineering plan. We also received the shade study, the traffic study, and we had a discussion at planning with the provincial archaeology branch to see if there were any concerns on their side. And there was an identification of the trees of interest. There was a tree study done. And here I have the renderings of the building as proposed. You can see that the longer facade, the 114 meters is here, along with some architectural features to try and break this wall effect that it might have otherwise. And that is the presentation of the project. I don't know if you have any comments or questions. Comments or questions, Councillor Lantaigne? Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have 4 questions and 2 sub-questions, but one of them was already answered. So I just want to make sure I understood correctly. In terms of the land use, the standard is 50% and this is 17.2%. That doesn't include the parking. No, that's just the building. Okay, so that answers that question. Now, I'd like to know the variance for the height. 15 meters is permitted. They're asking for 16.85 meters. I'd like to know the reason for that. Well, it's being proposed to build a 5-story building. 15 meters would be 4 stories only. And the applicant is asking for 5 stories. Maybe they should answer instead, but 8.85 meters represent a 5-story building. Yes, I'd like to know the reason for that. The answer or the exact reason? Why it's 15 meters are permitted, but you're requesting 16.85 meters height. Why? Why are you asking for a variance for this? It's to allow a 5th story. It's to allow a 5-story building. In order to build a 5-story building. Yes, but in your presentation, Mr. Girard, in the presentation by the builder, if I understand correctly, he's going to address that question during his presentation. Okay, thank you. Okay, if he's going to answer it, that's great. Now, there's a tree study as well. Could we get a copy of this tree study? We haven't received a copy of it. And I'd also like to know how many trees are going to be cut and what is the situation of these trees in terms of their health. And we're talking about trees of interest. I'd like to have further details on that. For the tree study, yes, I'm sure that could be shared. I think Alexandre is better able to answer the questions on the tree study. Yes, we could share that with council if you wish. If you want the inventory of the trees of interest and the other trees that were not identified as trees of interest, there's a justification for each one of the trees, so we can share that. Do we know how many trees are going to be cut? Yes. Amongst the trees of interest, there are about 20 that have been identified. 13 will be maintained, 8 will be cut. But on the site plan proposed, there are about 15 other trees that will be maintained as they are, as well as the woodlands along La Voie Street. All of that is indicated in the site plan as provided by the builder, so we can put them together and send them to you. Yes. Oh, great. Thank you. And my last question on the traffic study. I know that's going to be in the next presentation. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but there is some information on the traffic study, but I'd like to see the report, the traffic study itself, because there's been some points mentioned here, but the source is not mentioned. So I'd like to have more details on that, please. Yes, these traffic study could certainly be shared with you as well. Thank you. Thank you. The next person, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have 2 questions. Well, I had 3, but one was asked by Councillor Lantaigne already. Now, I have a question on traffic. When you look at the site plan, you see the traffic. It would be a one-way entrance and a one-way egress. But is there a 2-way egress or is it just one way with the exit lane as well? The driveways are 6 meters wide on the site plan, so there would be enough room, because I wouldn't want us to end up with a driveway that, people wanting to turn left would block the exit of anybody trying to turn right, because that is a big problem on a number of our streets. So if you say it's wide enough, well, I'm fine with that. My other question is that we're talking about trees and the trees that are going to stay and the building that's going to be very high, but the lot itself is on a slope. So do we know what the level, the difference in the level between the top of the slope and the bottom where the building is going to be built? We do have that information. I'm don't know it by heart, unfortunately, but when we talk about the height of 16.85 meters, that's an average over the building compared to the ground level. So the part that is closer to Amiro is lower, so that the part of the building will be higher from the ground level than the back of the building that it comes closer to the 15 meters, actually. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. I only have one question left. The others were all asked already. I have a question on the meeting with the PAC meeting that's going to be held in August. Now, for the public and for the developer as well, they're going to give us recommendations, but what are they going to base these recommendations on? Are they going to receive the traffic study? Are they going to receive all of this information that we don't currently have to help them make their recommendations? I'm sure you're going to prepare a whole file. So for the benefit of the public and for ourselves, what are they going to base their recommendations on? Well, for the PAC meeting, we will prepare an analysis that will include the staff recommendations, that all of those documents will be analyzed and included in the report. All of that information can be shared as well. What's interesting for the PAC is held after the PAC meeting is after the public hearing, so they can also take the citizens' comments into account in order to determine their recommendation. Though it is said somewhere here that it's not up to the PAC to consider the objections of the public, you're still going to take that into consideration? Well, as a matter of fact, the role of the PAC in this file, because the PAC isn't going to make the final decision, but the Community Planning Act is very clear. All of the public comments are sent to council. But in spite of all of that, of course, the PAC meetings are open to the public. They are open to the public, yes, they are. And in our recommendations in the technical report that we will be sending to the PAC members, of course, we're going to talk about the social acceptability of the project. We're going to talk about the technical aspects as well. So we don't share the traffic impact study or the sun and shade studies to the PAC in the context of a recommendation. Rather, we ask staff, the specialized staff, to analyze it, to summarize and to recommend something. But if council want that information, all of that technical information, we can certainly send it to council once it's time to make a decision on the file. Perfect, thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. I have a number of comments and a question. My first comment won't surprise you. 2 weeks ago, we asked a certain number of reports to be presented to council. We even asked, and several members of council voted against the public hearing because we wanted to have the report before we had the public hearing in order to be better informed. We did not receive the traffic study, and so I want to make sure that people will get the information, and I want a confirmation this evening that we are going to get these as soon as possible. Yes, we have the reports, they've been analyzed, so it shouldn't be a problem to send them over to you. Thank you. Okay, and I won't bring it up again. However, my comments are subject to the reading of these reports because we'd really like to have them. So, subject to that, because I understood when I look at the zoning, institutional zone and the type of uses, when I look at the use that council would like for that type of zone in my head, and I'm really eagerly awaiting the developer's report. But for me, in institutional zone, even if it does say multifamily, it shouldn't be high density, it seems to me. It should still remain a low density use. So I'd like to understand if there have been efforts made and which ones. I know the city works very closely with developers to work on something that is going to fit into the zone. And I know that you work with the projects as presented. So if we're going to something that is such high density, given the context of the institutional zone and the environment, it would be interesting to know because that would be an interesting factor. And also, good for young families. I don't see that. I don't see that this is a zone that is favorable to young families. I don't even see, I don't think it should be something that would generate a lot more traffic. I know it's going to generate more traffic, but we have to watch out for the density. But I haven't seen the report. So I'm looking at all of this. And as a councillor, these are things that are going to help guide me once I receive these reports. Also, when I look at the institutional zone and the questions I have for you is how you can come up with this kind of project, I'm considering the property. And let's say in 20 years, we're going to develop the river. I mean, these are resources, these are underdeveloped natural resources. Let's say we go upriver then. So you see the Saint Anselme Church, we protected the land in front of that. The land, the highest land before you get to the elbow is this lot itself. That's the highest elevation. So why is this project a good idea to be on this land, and that it's a really good place of choice in the vision of our future development?
Merci. Si on peut continuer.
Thank you. Let's proceed. Councillor Leboutier.
Désolé, j'ai un petit peu perdu le fil de tout ça, mais oui.
Yes, I think all of your questions are being noted, and we will make sure that we answer in our reports and taken into consideration in our recommendations. Thank you, Councillor Leboutier. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, but all of my questions have been answered by my colleagues. Well, not answered, but at least well asked. Thank you. Well, at this stage, Your Worship, so now we're the reading of the letters that we've received from people, many of whom or most of whom are here in the room. The procedure of local governance is that we have to read each letter received. We received 47 letters. And my colleague Stéphane Sipar agreed to help me out. So we're going to alternate the reading for the reading of the 47 objections. The first one, this letter constitutes my formal opposition to the construction of a 5-story, 154-unit building with 205 parking spaces at 452 Amiro. Here is why. Cutting down centennial trees on this woodland is unacceptable, while the city of Dieppe allows all existing woodlands to be systematically leveled. Soon, the tree policy will be fully applied. There will only be one tree left in Dieppe. 2, the definite increase in traffic on Amiro Street will make our children's safety more precarious, especially at bus stops, school bus stops. 3, I've lived on Lavoie Street since 1992. I chose this neighborhood for its quiet, totally residential feel to raise my children. This massive building doesn't fit in a residential neighborhood. buildings like this should be downtown, not on the outskirts. For the proximity and perhaps incursion into the Notre-Dame-du-Calvaire cemetery alone should cancel this project. This is a site that calls for respect and quiet, and the story of a number of Acadian families speak to us. My own granddaughter, Maud Felix, is buried there, and she has to rest in peace forevermore. You'll understand why I'm so strongly opposed to this project. I would therefore ask you to vote no to this project. A more appropriate use of the site at 452 Amiro should be envisaged. I'd like to thank you for paying attention to my letter of opposition. Louise Thibault, 353 La Voix. June 5th, 2024, subject capital real estate project 452 Amiro Street, Dieppe. It's with surprise and astonishment that I learned that the developer of the project at 452 Amiro is proposing a new version of the project. A huge 5-story building with 154 apartments and a huge 205 space parking lot. This gigantic project doesn't fit well in the beautiful neighborhood of single-family homes. It would destroy the harmony of the surrounding streets, as well as the Notre-Dame-du-Calvaire cemetery, which is right next door. The peace of mind needed by family members of the deceased and by the dead themselves will be destroyed forever. My 2 maternal grandparents, Edouard and Anna, and my daughter, Maud Felixa, rest in peace in Notre-Dame-du-Calvaire cemetery. With this real estate project, this will no longer be the case. This is intolerable and unacceptable. What's more, the cutting down of so many 100-year-old trees adds insult to injury when we know that the city of Dieppe has been boasting in the public arena that it has recently adopted a tree policy. What's the point of a tree policy if not to prevent the cutting down of century-old trees such as those at 5452 Amiro? If the answer is that cutting of these 100-year-old trees is permitted, what's the point of a tree policy if it's not a smokescreen to give developers permission to cut whatever they want? The tree policy is nothing but smoke and mirrors. The city of Dieppe can't develop just anywhere and anyhow. Wisdom, good judgment, common sense dictate that this project will not be in keeping with the neighborhood, the cemetery, and the century-old trees. That's why I'm opposed to this project. Please register my opposition to the proposed project at 452 Amiro. Yours sincerely, Hubert Dupuis, 453 La Voix.
Please stop new development on Amiro Street. We do not need any more 500 unit or however big another apartment building is. Dieppe has done a great job of tearing down a once beautiful city to live in. There is no need to rip out more trees in town limits. We don't have any left as it is. You've already made a mess of beautiful trails. We had near Central and look there heading for the Rotary Park next. Shh, that's enough. So this is from Derek Porter.
Un courriel de Maryse Carré. À qui de droit? Je vous écris pour vous faire part de mon
From
inquiétude.
Maryse Carré. I'm writing to express my concern about all these new establishments on Amiros and at Acadie. In addition to this new building, we'll be seeing Balade next to the Promenade Neuf, as well as Le Marquis across the street on Acadie. There are several new homes on Champlain, Gauvin, Melanson, and Dieppe Boulevard, which also make the other arteries busy. Amiro Acadie is already very busy at peak times, and this is likely to have a major impact on traffic. At the Acadie-Champlain intersection will certainly become a problem. So if we continue to go ahead with these developments, we need to look at our road infrastructure and continue to accommodate the increased number of cars that will be on these main roads. It's already very difficult to get out of Vanier in the morning, and sometimes the line goes back as far as Chartersville or even the Vanier to get to Champlain. Be careful not to frustrate people and plan ahead. Along with these clear cuts, we'll find more and more animals. The deer are already on our streets and on our properties. Dieppe has gone from being a place of nature and trails to a more urban environment, and the city has failed to adapt to the rapid changes. The trails have lost their charm and the animals their home. Maryse Carey. I would like to share with you that we support the citizens group opposing the construction at 452 Amiro. We believe that a multi-unit housing project of this scale will have an impact on the quality of life of citizens on Lavoie Street and the surrounding area. Quietness, safety, the environmental business will be disrupted, raising issues and impacting on the quality of life of citizens. We are not against the development and improvement of our city, but therefore key eco-responsible projects and smaller construction projects should be taken into consideration in order to preserve and respect the environment and people's peace of mind. Hoping that everyone's voice will be heard and taken into consideration, we send you our regards, Nancy Dubé and Ronald Robichaud at 346 Lavoie. I'm a long-term resident of this already developed and long-established area, and now we're about to completely denature the neighborhood. The site in question has a long heritage history as the site of the first French-speaking Catholic Archbishop in Eastern Quebec. The city has erased the heritage aspect with the destruction of the building. Not even a commemorative plaque has been erected. It's a disgrace. The history of the site has not even been researched. I completely disagree with the project for the following reasons. One, the project is enormous with 154 units on 5 floors, a building that doesn't fit in with the single and two-family nature of the neighborhood. Two, it's a blatant lack of respect for the adjacent property, Notre-Dame du Calvaire Cemetery, and for the people who have been buried there for generations, with a visual invasion that will disturb their peace and quiet of the cemetery's users. The presence of the cemetery and its users, as well as the relatives of the people buried there, were not given any serious consideration when the project was drawn up. It's unthinkable to think that they weren't given more importance. Residents of the proposed building will have a proximity to the graves never before seen in Greater Moncton. Despite the revision, the project calls for massive tree cutting, many of them over 100 years old, while Canada burns. 4, in my opinion, this project constitutes an urban sprawl with very few services nearby, and as a result, the building's inhabitants will undoubtedly be dependent on the car. The site is several kilometers from downtown Dieppe. That's urban sprawl. The city has no responsibility for the economic profitability of an individual's real estate project. With 154 units, it is too large to be economically profitable for the developer and out of keeping with the neighborhood. 6, please consider these arguments in your decision-making and vote against the project in its entirety. Paul Albert.
There's a cemetery right beside where they are proposing to build. This shows no respect to those who have passed away or the families of those they are visiting. Living at 321 Lavoie Street, this would infringe on our privacy. A 5-story apartment building would have people being able to look into my children's bedroom and bathroom windows from a higher viewpoint. This is beyond disturbing and is already causing anxiety in our home. Also, it is on a blind corner to where we come to a corner off Lavoie, and children walk to that area to catch the bus daily. My son has to cross the street daily to catch the bus to school. This would put his safety at risk. The traffic already daily is so busy along that area. There seems to have been no thought put into this whatsoever. Boyd and Denise Dunleavy, 321 Lavoie Street.
Courriel de Brigitte Leblanc. Bonjour, je suis extrêmement concerné pour le projet de développement de 150 étages.
I'm very concerned about the proposed 154 story development at 452 Amiro. There's some 45 mature trees, including centennial trees, Seville native trees. The latter are amongst the oldest trees in the city and bring many rich benefits. The destruction of trees in Dieppe is alarming. It's imperative that the city of Dieppe act immediately to stop the destruction of the 45 mature trees on 452 Amiro Street. The city should commit to protecting this land and these century-old trees. I am a resident of the city of Dieppe for over 22 years. I'm sent as well as my wife. I'm sending you this email because of a proposed development of which I recently became aware. This project was proposed by Southwest Development for the construction of a 5-story multi-residential building, 152 units at 452 Amiro, the site of the former Archbishop's residence, close to the cemetery. I'm imposed because the graves of my parents, grandparents, several aunts and uncles, cousins, and other relatives are located in the cemetery here. The graves of my spouse family are also in the cemetery. The cemetery is a very special place for visits, meditation, and prayers at the foot of graves of the loved ones. A project as proposed with 152 units will completely encroach on the atmosphere of the cemetery and deprive visitors with the opportunity to make visits without being subject to the gaze of many people sitting on the patio or in their living rooms. The former archdiocese ensured that the cemetery was a place of recollection and prayer, whereas the proposed project completely removes this. For example, my maternal grandparents' graves is 12 meters from the proposed building. How can you have a private visiting with a large block of 152 buildings right next door to the grave? I understand that there are other practices elsewhere in the country, better practices, especially in the Western Canada and elsewhere in the world, where a development project should respect at least 100 meters of distance from a cemetery for precisely the reasons I stated above. It seems to me that the city of Dieppe should adopt these best practices and be ahead of the curve in protecting the cemetery, as it does in protecting the environment, parks, trees, and other measures to improve the quality of life of Dieppe residents. I'm also a grandparent to 4 grandchildren who live in Dieppe, so I use Amiro Street very frequently to visit them and take them to activities or daycare. There's a lot of traffic, especially during rush hour on Amiro. We want to add another 200 or 300 cars to this already problematic traffic. Wouldn't this project be better located elsewhere in Dieppe so as to not worsen traffic on Amiro? I note that there are many 100-year-old trees on this lot that will probably have to be cut down. Do we simply want to replace these beautiful trees with a few young planted trees that will take a generation to grow on the shape and to become the shape of the 100-year-old ones? I conclude by asking Dieppe City Council to take this letter of opposition to the proposed series seriously and not allow it to go ahead. Donald French, 61188 Sunsets.
Dorian Michel, Grégoire. Bonjour, j'ai appris le projet de bâtiment.
Hello, I heard about the project to build 154 apartments on the land at 452 Amiro Street in Dieppe. I don't understand how this project was even considered in the first place. I thought the city had planned to group important buildings like this one on Dieppe Boulevard and Champlain. What worries me most about this project is the total disregard for recent regulations protecting mature trees. This land is magnificently planted with trees and deserves to be developed in a more thoughtful way and on a human scale. Secondly, the population is densifying enormously, and in a very short time of space, putting a building of this size on this site could profoundly alter the area's quiet residential character. It's already difficult to connect Amiro with Vanier Street, so I can't imagine what 154 new residents would have to do to fit into this situation. I also wonder about the possibility of New-Brunswick people becoming homeowners. Too often these huge buildings are managed entirely by pooled funds or complex enterprises with no space left for private investors. It would be rational in this type of project to start integrating at least 30% of the building into the compulsory sale to individuals so that residents can also count within their city. Thank you for this opportunity to share your concerns. I understand that the city is expanding and this is a good thing for its future, but everything is moving extremely fast, and the risk is that we don't give it enough thought.
I am writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed construction of a multi-level apartment building at 452 Amiro. As a concerned citizen and a longtime resident of this neighborhood over 23 years, I am deeply troubled by the potential impact this development would have on our community. My concerns include increased traffic volumes on Amiro, especially at the Blind Hill at Lavoie, loss of this beautiful green space that has naturally developed and is so key to the peacefulness and scenery of the cemetery, loss of beautiful old trees that are growing there and thought were protected by new bylaw, incompatibility of a huge project such as this with the character of this neighborhood and those surrounding the area. A 152-unit building that is 5 stories high does not fit in a neighborhood of single and two-family homes. This is already a well-established area. Increased noise and disruption to the peaceful enjoyment of our homes. I urge you to consider the well-being and quality of life of existing residents and reject this proposal. I must note that I am also surprised at the city's lack of interest on the history of the property and its historical roots. I was amazed at the research done to seek this out, and Dieppe usually takes great pride in its history. There are numerous examples of where Dieppe has embraced its history and made monuments and other types of remembrance places and sites. This plot of land meets that criteria and should be placed a memorial. Nathalie Gallon, 337 Lavoie Street.
Courriel de Julius Fontanini Robichaud.
Julius Fontani Robichaud. Dear Planning Advisory Committee, I'm writing to express my deep concern about the proposed construction of an apartment block at the foot of the local cemetery. As a resident of the community, I firmly believe that this proposal goes against our values and respect for the deceased and their families. The immediate proximity of a cemetery to a residential complex raises a number of concerns, not least with regard to the respect and dignity of the dead and the emotional well-being of potential residents. The tranquility and serenity that should accompany life in a place of eternal rest run the risk of being disrupted by daily human activity. What's more, building an apartment block near a cemetery could have a negative impact on surrounding property values, which could affect the community as a whole. I urge you to reconsider this project and explore other development options that respect the cemetery's cultural and emotional importance to our community. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I am ready to provide any further support needed to find a more appropriate solution. Best regards. I, Loredana Fontanini, residing at 393 Lavoie Street, am writing to you. Indeed, it is with a heart full of emotion that I address you and ask you to consider my arguments about a particular developer's enormous real estate project. I've been lucky enough to live on Lavoie Street for the past 6 years. Back then, as a young working couple, we completely fell in love with this street and this neighborhood. And thanks to years of hard work and concessions, we were able to settle here and start our family. The reasons for our choice were many, but mainly the natural beauty of the area, our haven of peace and quiet, and the opportunity to build a family. It therefore seems inconceivable to me to want to alter this beautiful neighborhood. We were immediately impressed by the heritage history of the site, and it was with great sadness that we witnessed the destruction of this beautiful building. At the time, we had so many projects in mind to save it, but due to a lack of funds, we were unable to do that. Today, nothing has been built, the building is destroyed, and there's nothing to remember it by. History is our wealth, our richness, and it must be preserved. Of course, I understand that times change and that a city can expand, but in this particular case, I'm sorry, but I don't understand why anyone would want to destroy such a beautiful site to build a 5-story building, 154 units with the sole intention of lining a developer's pockets. Why not start a nice project for the city, for its inhabitants? This doesn't fit in with the current framework of the neighborhood, which is either single family or 2-family. One of the reasons we chose this neighborhood is for its low density residential setting. I don't understand how such a large building can be standard in our area. Yes, I understand that there's demand for more housing, but there are so many other places to put it. What about the Notre-Dame-du-Calais Cemetery? Should we worry about our deceased, their families? Who pays their respects in this sacred place? I teach my young children respect for our elders, our dead, our buildings. How can I make them understand that our city doesn't apply the same respect? This is unacceptable, disappointing, disturbing, and sad all at once. How would you like to see a building erected at the foot of your parents' grave with all the risks that go with it? Why is this site not protected? Why don't we respect our dead? Yes, it exists. This exists in large centers such as Toronto, where there's a shortage of space. But what's the valid reason for this construction at the foot of our graves? So many questions come to mind. How are you going to preserve the mature trees, some of which are hundreds of years old? We pray we won't lose them when Mother Nature brings us a storm. I personally tried to save one of my mature trees, which was unfortunately uprooted in a storm, and now a developer is going to come and cut it down. How are you going to improve traffic on Amiro Street, which is already very busy, but few services nearby? 154 units, so a minimum of 150 more cars trying to get out and get to the shops. Will you also allow a food store to be set up, to shut up shop rather nearby, perhaps on the cemetery itself? I apologize for the long message and thank you in advance for taking the time to read it. Please consider these arguments in your decision-making and vote against the project in its entirety. Best regards, Loredana Fontanini, 393 Lavoie Street. Lily Rose Fontanini Robichaud. Dear Urban Planning Committee, I would like to express my profound disagreement with the plan to build a block of apartments in our quiet family neighborhood characterized by its low density and natural beauty. This initiative seems to be motivated solely by the developer's profit to the detriment of our community and our environment. The site proposed for construction is currently a natural area with mature trees that provide not only aesthetic beauty, but also environmental benefits such as temperature regulation, air purification, and preservation of local biodiversity. Cutting down those trees to allow the construction of an apartment complex would be a denaturing of the landscape and an inestimable loss for our neighborhood. What's more, the addition of an apartment block in a low density zone would compromise the quiet, family-friendly character of our neighborhood. This could lead to an increase in traffic noise and population density, which would have a negative impact on the quality of life of existing residents. I urge you to reject this project and explore alternatives that preserve the integrity of our neighborhood and its natural environment. And it is imperative that the needs and interests of the community be taken into account rather than given in to the financial interests of a developer. I am ready to provide whatever support is needed to defend the preservation of our neighborhood, and I thank you for your attention to this crucial issue for our community. Best regards.
We accept to live by a cemetery years ago when not everyone would. Not a 150-unit apartment complex with many people. Traffic on Amiro is already a nightmare with recent accidents at the end of Lavoie to prove it. Turning left is almost impossible at any time. Surely this type of project does not belong in the middle of an established private homes. Corinne and Louis Godet, 341 Lavoie.
Léonide et Géraldine Desjardins. Monsieur, Madame, la présente a pour objet d'exprimer notre soutien au groupe de citoyens qui
The
s'opposent.
purpose of this letter is to express our support for the group of citizens who are strongly opposed to the residential development currently planned in the Chartersville neighborhood. We also advocate the protection of the century-old trees on the site. These trees are not just elements of the landscape, but living witnesses to our history and natural heritage. Their ecological value is inestimable. They contribute to local biodiversity and improve air quality by absorbing carbon dioxide. They also play a crucial role in regulating local temperature and preventing soil erosion. Having lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years, we can confirm that the disappearance of these century-old trees would entail an irreparable loss for our community, not only in ecological terms, but also in terms of the quality of life and well-being of residents. Urban trees are known for their psychological benefits, providing spaces for relaxation and rejuvenation, which is particularly important in the context of modern urban life. We therefore urge you to reject this residential project and explore alternatives that would preserve these majestic trees. For example, a redesigned development that integrates these trees as central elements of the project, or the creation of a protected green space that could not only safeguard our natural heritage, but also increase the attractiveness of our city. Dieppe has every interest in increasing its commitment to sustainable development and environmental protection. As concerned citizens, we firmly believe that it's possible to find a win-win balance. By working together, we can develop innovative solutions that meet our city's growth needs, while protecting our natural heritage for future generations. The older the trees, the faster they grow. If we want forests to play their full part in combating climate change, we have to let them grow old. The Secret Life of Trees, Peter Wolleben. We thank you in advance for your attention to our request and ask you to take action to protect our century-old trees.
I am very concerned with the impact the proposed development of a 5-story apartment building at 452 Emery Street will have on the graveyard and tranquility of the area. I strongly oppose the development project and will attend the public hearing at Dieppe City Hall on June 24th. Stephen Day, 377 rue Lavoie.
Diane Lafont, j'aimerais faire part à la mairie la signification du mot cimetière. Le cimetière est l'endroit où les familles se souviennent et où la mémoire des défunts est bien vivante. C'est un lieu de rencontre du public, de jonction et de communication entre les vivants et les morts, un patrimoine vivant. Un terrain généralement béni, le plus souvent clos de murs dans lesquels on enterre les morts. Lorsqu'on choisit un cimetière pour déposer nos êtres chers, ou que c'est nos êtres chers qui choisissent cet endroit, croyant qu'ils auront un repos éternel. On choisit ce lieu pour ce qu'il dégage, on choisit ce lieu pour son décor reposant, on choisit ce lieu pour se recueillir, on choisit ce lieu pour ressentir l'énergie que ces personnes nous transmettent, on choisit ce lieu pour être près de nos êtres chers. Votre projet ne respecte pas la tranquillité qu'on leur a promis, c'est comme se foutre de leur repos. Je vieillis et quand je regarde ce que vous proposez comme projet, votre manque de respect me déçoit énormément. Je réalise que pour vous, une personne décédée n'a pas droit à son repos éternel. J'aime me promener dans ce cimetière et de pouvoir discuter et de demander aux défunts de m'aide et de prier pour mes proches. Et oui, je leur parle. Je n'ai pas envie d'entendre tous ces bruits et de voir disparaître tous ces arbres magnifiques qui, eux aussi, ont le droit de vivre et embellir les lieux. Je ne veux pas que l'on m'observe quand je verse mes larmes et je ne veux pas voir un mur de béton en face des pierres tombales pour qui on choisit ce lieu pour sa nature et sa beauté. Votre argument qu'il manque des logements, la province déborde de terrain, regardez autour de vous. Les nouveaux arrivants ont plus de respect pour les défunts que vous. Regardez dans d'autres pays, les cimetières sont souvent de très beaux endroits retirés et près de la nature, pas entourés de bâtiments de 5 étages. On ne choisit pas d'être enterré au centre-ville. Et quand on leur dit « repose en paix, s'il vous plaît, respectez notre promesse à nos défunts ». Un jour, ce sera vous qui y serez déposés et vos enfants et petits-enfants viendront vous voir. Alors organisez-vous pour que cet endroit soit invitant et surtout en mémoire de ceux qui nous ont quittés reste un lieu de repos. Ne transformez pas ce lieu si magnifique pour remplir les poches des promoteurs. Merci. Diane Lafont.
Ne tuons pas la beauté du monde. Chaque fleur,
Let's not kill the beauty of the world. Every flower, every tree we kill comes back to kill us in turn, just as we don't tear down churches without desecrating them. We shouldn't tear down our cemeteries without desecrating them either. You'd have to be foolish and disrespectful of the ritual of death to disturb the sweet repose of souls in peace. Article 16.1.1 of the French Civil Code reads as follows. Respect for the human body does not cease with death, and the remains of deceased persons, including the ashes of those whose bodies have been cremated, must be treated with respect, dignity, and decency. By doing so, you're not only disrespecting them, you're taking away the privacy of the people who come to mourn their loved ones and who don't necessarily want to be seen and heard when they express their emotions to their loved ones. So please, out of respect for life, respect death. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding. Véronique Urbain, 248, Damien. I wonder why you informed the families of the streets near the cemetery, not informed the families of the deceased who lie in the cemetery. Citizens who have paid taxes all their lives. Don't you think they have a right to know what's going on? Do you think that just because they're dead, that we should ignore them? Can the citizens of Dieppe be proud of their cemetery? Mr. City Planner, when you were presented with this project, did you realize that you were standing next to the cemetery? And what would be the point of a 5-story building with over 150 apartments, 40 feet from the tombstones? Does this seem appropriate to you? Don't you think the public will wonder how this huge unrelated building could have grown up on this plot of land, and everyone will wonder what it's doing there and whose idea it was to agree to it? We used to have the archdiocese on this site. Can we have a logical continuation next to our tombstones and keep in mind that thousands of deceased citizens, as well as many visitors, cohabit these grounds? To the developer, I ask you, have you had the chance to walk through the cemetery and feel why people have chosen this location for their final resting place? Have you heard the silence and energy of nature that surrounds the cemetery? The thousands of citizens who inhabit this place, these voices you can't hear, their silence tells you that your project is not welcome. André Urbain. Je suis contre le projet proposé. Je suis un résident depuis longtemps à Dieppe sur Amiro. Je me souviens une époque où ils ont commencé à déchirer les fermes dans le quartier, construire des lotissements résidentiels. Premièrement, le croissant, non, et ensuite la rue Lavoie et Louis, et lorsque l'archevêché a été à côté du cimetière, c'était tranquille, c'était beau. Je pense que les nouveaux locataires dérangeront les personnes qui utilisent le cimetière et les résidences environnantes. Ce sera difficile d'avoir quelqu'un qui vous regarde chez vous lorsque vous faites un barbecue, par exemple. Ça va dévaluer la valeur de nos maisons. Ça devait être construit ailleurs dans la ville.
It will bring a lot of extra traffic and harder to get in and out of our homes. Two nearby daycares and nursing homes with these people having a hard time walking in the area and crossing the street. It's a scary sight to see kids play and people walking their pets in the area. I didn't know why you haven't done a noise pollution impact study and air pollution of the project. Right now, we have a hard time talking to each other in my home and in my yard. Impossible to hear. I have medical problems and I can't even go outside and walk the area because of the car exhaust pollution. Also, the seniors walking with their walkers on the sidewalk is a scary sight for sure with the risk of accidents. Thank you for taking this into account, my arguments against this project, and please vote against the project together. Randolph Clerk.
Courriel de Augustin Albert.
Augustin Albert, le 16 juin 2024. I'm writing to you today to express my concerns about the proposed 5-story building at 542. Over the past few years, I've seen the city change. There are places I no longer recognize. I understand the need for housing. I don't understand why the city is being developed without any vision for the future. By 2024, Canada's major cities have already realized that we need to change the way we do things. In Montreal, they're trying to reestablish the urban forests that were cut down in the past. We have urban forests in Dieppe. Let's stop cutting them down. Shouldn't we be thinking about what we want for the future of our city? What do you want to leave to future? What would you like to leave to future generations? By big apartment blocks? Will the city of Dieppe become the place to rent forever? And where the only green space will be the Rotary Park? What's the point of inviting people to settle in Dieppe if all we have to offer is asphalt and concrete? This particular project will destroy magnificent trees that have been there for over 100 years. What's more, this huge building would overlook the cemetery where veterans are buried. What a lack of respect for those who fought for us. We should take inspiration from Dieppe in France. Here, fallen soldiers are laid to rest in a calm, peaceful environment. Don't our veterans deserve as much? In short, I ask councillors to listen carefully what their citizens want. The citizens of the future will be happy to settle here if the development is inviting, well thought out, innovative, and above all, in harmony with nature. Thank you. We've been living in Dieppe for 31 years. The cemetery was built beside the Archdiocese, and this is a multi-family building is going to destroy all of this. We are against it, and we want to avoid the errors of Centrale Street and the trail between Centrale and the Bourg Street. Louis Thériault. We're halfway there. Good day. I've been living in this neighborhood for over 10 years. I'd like to share my disagreement with. First of all, I don't think that this kind of building has its place in this kind of neighborhood. We are against it. There are mature trees, and it's very peace and calm. I can't imagine how this will change the calm of our neighborhood. Just know that this building will be built where there are century-old trees. I think that it should be best kept as a historic site or even a park. Dieppe is growing, and I sincerely believe that it's time for the city to put restrictions on developers limiting such large-scale projects in our family neighborhoods. Please consider my point of view in your decision, and please vote against this project. Rochelle Saint-Coeur.
To the proposed construction of a 5-story apartment building at 452 Amiro. In 2013, my husband and I moved to Dieppe with our 2 children. We relocated from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and we're excited to find a new home on beautiful and tranquil Rue Lavoie. Having never visited New Brunswick prior to our relocation, we quickly chose Dieppe as we absolutely love the peaceful neighborhoods with old established trees and green space. We soon discovered the walking paths, parks, and abundance of natural amenities. It was a perfect balance of city and country. On any given day, we will have raccoons, porcupines, ducks, pheasants, groundhogs, skunks, and even deer crossing our backyards on Lavoie. They are often heading towards the cemetery where there is food and safety in the trees and open space. Not once did we think that we may soon have a gigantic building looming over our street, separating us from the small forest and peaceful cemetery that was part of our initial appeal of our neighborhood. Over the last decade, Dieppe's green space have rapidly disappeared to make way for enormous apartment blocks and housing development. Once again, barely blink and another few acres of forest has been raised for the development. While understanding the need for housing for our rapidly growing population, I question why this specific site is even under consideration for this type and size of building. There are no other multi-level buildings in the vicinity. It is far from any major services. It may be on a major artery through Dieppe, but Amiro is already congested and traffic still moves dangerously fast despite the speed reduction sign and new pedestrian crossings. My children must wait on Amiro for school bus pickup and drop off as the buses will not travel up our street. I already have significant concern for their safety without the potential traffic increase, construction vehicle as well, that a 154-unit apartment building will bring to our neighborhood. There are far more appropriate spots in Dieppe for construction of multi-level, multi-unit apartments, spots with much less impact on the environment. Lastly, there are generations of New Brunswick residents laid to rest in the Notre-Dame du Calvaire Cemetery that lies adjacent to this proposed site. Family members come to pay their respect to their loved ones in a tranquil setting, which will be destroyed if this development goes forward. The noise of construction and future traffic will forever change that beautiful settings, not to mention drive away the thousands of geese who take up residence there during their migration. Please oppose this proposal, consider the land for more appropriate and respectful use, show respect for Dieppe citizens who have chosen that spot at their final resting place, the families who love and miss them, and to the wildlife who feel safe there. Jenny Butler, 322 Rue Lavoie.
Bon matin, ce courriel vous est adressé pour exprimer notre opposition
Good
ferme.
morning. This email is addressed to you to express our firm opposition to this project, not to mention the negative impact on Dieppe's beautiful and diminishing green landscape. This project is going to cause a hazard for local people when they try to reach Amiro Street, more specifically Lavoie Street. It's going to be a big problem. Although we understand the need to densify the population, the project was developed without taking into account the value of the site to people and the associated risks. You can't simply turn all green spaces into buildings. We hope that Council will see what this project will in place and will oppose it. Michel Dastou et Liette Mainville. We have been residents here since 2008. We chose this site because of the beauty of the neighborhood and the proximity to the cemetery and the woodland, which offer an oasis but still remaining close to downtown. We are completely against this project for different reasons shared by all our neighbors. The cutting of these mature 100-year-old trees in spite of the tree bylaw and increase of the traffic on Amiro, the lack of quiet and tranquility for the users of the cemetery, the denaturing of the residential neighborhood. The Dieppe is undergoing deforestation and a destruction of its soul at the profit of the increase of municipal taxes. And if this project goes ahead, we're seriously consider going into a community that is really looking in that long term. Linda Leblanc and François Raymond. Rue Lavoie. Good day. I am against this and the consequences of this project. After what happened on the Centrale Street, there are almost no trees, no birds or wildlife there. There's Denise Alain.
proposed project on 452 Amedo Street in Dieppe. We have been residing on Levois Street for close to 17 years now. We recognize the need for economic stimulation, but at the same time, we value the greenery and quietness of this neighborhood. We value our location. We are concerned with the additional traffic that such a project would create in our area. Establishing ourselves in Dieppe was a big part due to all the green space and lack of crowdiness. Julie Bédard, Dwayne Furry, 342 Lavoie.
Courriel d'Éline Ouellette. À qui de droit, je veux par ce présent courriel partager mes préoccupations par rapport au
I'd
projet.
like to share my concerns on the building of this 554-unit building on the 452. It's not acceptable to build this kind of building beside a cemetery. It will increase the traffic on Amiro and will cause the cutting of a number of mature trees. These are just a few of the reasons why we're against this, Karine Ouellette.
Plan to construct an apartment complex at 452 Amiro adjacent to Rue Lavoie. Unfortunately, this proposal addresses none of my concerns about the project. I am therefore opposed to this development. I am a recently retired physician who moved to Dieppe in 2010. I practiced medicine in Moncton for 8 years before retiring in 2020. My wife and I chose a house on Lavoie because it was a quiet, secluded neighborhood inhabited almost exclusively by other professionals. To my knowledge, there are at least 18 physicians living on Rue Lavoie, along with the numerous lawyers, dentists, and other professionals. This project will severely disrupt traffic flow and fundamentally change the character of the neighborhood. We would never have bought here if we had known such a project was being planned. I'm told that property values cannot be used to argue against the project. How is this a reasonable restriction? Property value is the primary concern of every person who buys a home. This project has the potential to significantly affect the values of all homes on Lavoie. If this project goes through, I will feel significantly betrayed by my municipality government. I strongly urge Council to reject this proposal and to make arrangements for this building to be built in a more suitable area. Scott Cameron, 385 Lavoie.
Madame, Monsieur, je vous écris pour vous exprimer mon désaccord.
I am writing to express my disagreement with the proposed development project near the municipal cemetery. As a resident of Dieppe, I am deeply concerned about the implications of this project on our community and the local environment. First of all, the municipal cemetery is a place of great importance to many of our city's residents. It's a place of rest for our loved ones and a place of remembrance for families who have the right to visit in peace. What's more, the cemetery has a significant heritage dimension, both in terms of the monuments it contains and the people who live there. In short, it is of cultural importance to the Dieppe community as a whole. Its integrity and tranquility must be preserved, and any development in its vicinity could jeopardize these essential values. In addition, I'm concerned about the potential impact on the local environment, particularly with regard to the felling of old trees in our area. These trees not only beautify our landscape, but play a crucial role in climate regulation and air quality. Although the city may consider replanting trees, it's essential to recognize that it'll take over 50 years for these new trees to reach the maturity needed to store carbon effectively. I'm aware that a new municipal bylaw has recently been introduced concerning the cutting of trees on residential properties in the city of Dieppe. This bylaw reflects our collective commitment to the protection of our environment and should be taken into consideration in the assessment of this development project. I'm convinced that it is essential to find a balance between the necessary development of our community and the preservation of our natural and cultural environment. I therefore encourage you to explore alternatives that respect these fundamental values. Yours sincerely, Denise Boudreau-Doucette. I am a co-founder of the Function Tree Keepers.
Was about to destroy them to build an apartment complex right out to the sidewalk and fill the rest of the property with parking lot, leaving no green space. We were successful thanks to gathering a significant number of Moncton residents to attend that week's City Hall meeting and to express dismay that two healthy 100-year-old oaks deemed by an arborist to have another 100 good years in them were to be destroyed for profit, and in a city that suffers greatly from a lack of mature trees due to tragedies of the years, from fires to high winds to disease to greedy mismanagement and lack of bylaws. We worked with the City Council to get a bylaw in place in Moncton downtown core to require a permit to harm or remove a mature healthy tree and come with a fine if it is disregarded. This meant that some of us put our bodies more than once between chainsaws and trees in various locations when people were desperate to protect trees while waiting for municipality's decision. I myself took a 2 big men loan and told them, how much are you getting paid by the hour? I hope it's worth manslaughter because you will not get this tree without going through me. We were busy people, and these are not the type of tactics we wanted or had times to engage in, but before any protection were in place, it was us against for-profit landlords and rich housing outfits who are in and for the money and don't care about well-being, affordable housing, green space, or the planet. We're not unreasonable. We are not against new housing, against development, or against cutting trees. There are disease or in danger of doing serious damage. We just want evidence-based decision-making. And right now, the evidence points toward a dire need for mature trees in our cities. You cannot plant a few baby trees and expect them to make up for the cooling and pollution mitigating effects of even one already mature tree. We prepared a science-based report for City Hall that showed correlation between a healthy urban canopy, a well-treated city, and reduced crime rates, reduced mental health emergencies, reduced policy violence, cooler average annual temperatures, and better air quality. For these reasons, and that's not even mentioning a prettier city, nicer for tourists and residents, any removal of mature trees is a dire mistake in Dieppe and Moncton. I am writing to urge you to respect our own new bylaw when you decide whether to approve the housing and parking proposal for 452 Amiro Street. It looks as though it will require the removal of many mature, even century-old trees. Of course, housing is in crisis, but it doesn't mean we have to cause new problems while solving other. There are ways to design new buildings that respect existing mature trees, respect residents, respect the tree bylaw, respect the climate emergency and the wildlife, respect the nearby visitors to the cemetery, and respect the dead who choose it as their tranquil resting place. This does not need to go forward in an ugly, environmentally unsound, disrespectful, and unfazed way. Let's work on housing solutions that are also climate solutions, not additional money grabs for the rich at the expense of everyone else. Please do not remove healthy trees at all, if at all possible. Sarah Pranks.
Monsieur, Madame, pour la présente tête, je vous demande de mettre en arrêt le projet d'un immeuble à appartement proposé sur le terrain
I
450.
ask you to put a stop to this project at 452 Amiro. A number of reasons motivate my request, and I will give you a few. One, I'm against cutting trees, beautiful mature trees that are over 100 years old, and for the quiet nature of the space for the cemetery. 3, the denaturation of this park. So I ask you to oppose this project, which is inappropriate and inaccessible. I hope that you will agree with me. Fernand Quentin. I would like to, it is clear that a building of this size does not fit on a lot adjacent to a single family residential zone and should automatically be rejected by council unanimously without accepting any variances. The town of Riverview has listened to its citizens and for some time has not allowed this type of building near single family homes. It's obvious that the developers simply want to maximize the use of the land to make it as profitable as possible without any consideration for the architectural imbalance, the devaluation of neighborhood housing, the balance and zen of the area. It's simply a matter of profit at all costs for the developers. In my opinion, this building does not belong on this lot, and that's why the developers have to apply for several variances and exceptions to try to get it to fit. The reality is that they're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. This massive project simply doesn't fit in this residential quarter and doesn't respect the value of citizens. If the developers really wanted to develop this specific building, they could always find land in a more suitable area and no variance would be necessary. It's high time that the city listened not only to the voices of developers, but also to the heartfelt cries of the many citizens who contribute not only to the city's tax base, but also to its well-being. In conclusion, our councillors should not agree to grant exceptions to the urban planning rules and standards already established by the city and should reject this proposal. Stéphanie Riki, Liasiari Kuti. We are residents of Lavoie Street and have lived there since 1990 when the street was first created. We hereby express our opposition to the project at 452 Amiro Street. We understand the need for housing in the community. However, the construction of a gigantic building doesn't fit well with our neighborhood and this particular lot. In our opinion, the plot in question stands out from the other plots in Dieppe thanks to a number of unique features. 2, this plot is unique in that it's adjacent to the Notre-Dame du Calvaire cemetery. Such a building has no place next to a cemetery. It would be totally unacceptable to approve this project and would show a lack of respect for the deceased and their families who will be visiting the cemetery right next to them. The proximity of the building to the burial site and the visual impact of this enormous building will undermine their peace of mind. It would be an affront to the sacred place where privacy must be respected. 3, this land is unique in that it's a jewel for the city with its enormous trees, many of which are over 100 years old, as well as its wildlife and birds. The project will involve cutting down a large number of trees, some of which are over 100 years old. We need to protect these trees and use the land wisely. This land has historic value as a Catholic Church heritage site, the site of the first residence of a French-speaking Catholic Archbishop in an Acadian region of New Brunswick. This historical fact must be recognized. We'll need to make sure that there are no anonymous unidentified burial sites on the lot at 452 Amiro Street. A gigantic 154-unit, 5-story building will completely alter and denature our residential neighborhood, which is made up of single-family houses and duplexes. There are no such buildings in our region or in our neighborhood, and they have no place here, especially on this unique lot near a cemetery. The city is growing rapidly with regard to the land at 452 Amiro Street. We thank you for your attention to arguments in your decision-making, and we respectfully ask you to vote against the project and to adopt a wise vision regarding the use of this unique piece of land, and above all, to listen to citizens. Protecting this land would be a precious legacy to pass on to your citizens. Diane Collin-Légère and Jean-Guy Légère.
5-story apartment building with 154 units and 205 parking space at 452 Amiro Street between Lavoie Street and the cemetery. This project raises several significant concerns that threatens the well-being and character of our community. Firstly, the proposal development will necessitate the removal of several mature and century-old trees. These trees are integral to the aesthetic and historical value of our neighborhood, providing vital ecological benefits such as an air purification and an habitat for local wildlife. Their destruction would result in a considerable loss of green space and negatively impact the environmental health of the area. Secondly, the addition of 154 residential units and 205 parking space will significantly increase traffic on Amiro Street, which is already heavily congested. This street serves as the main and only road into town for residents of the surrounding communities, such as Mimironko. The increased traffic will lead to longer commute times, heightened noises pollution, and a higher risk of traffic accidents, further straining the already overburdened infrastructure. Moreover, the proximity of the proposed building to the cemetery is deeply concerning. Cemeteries are a place of peace and reflection. The noise and the disruption from a large residential building would be highly disrespectful to both visitors and those visiting in peace. This project would undermine the tranquility and sanctity of this important community space. Additionally, the proposed development is inconsistent with the character of our neighborhood, which consists predominantly of single-family dwellings. The addition of a 5-story apartment building would degrade the aesthetic and cultural fabric of our community, leading to a loss of cohesion and a potential decline in property values. The significant height of the building would also result in a considerable loss of sunlight for properties located immediately to the south of Lavo Street, adversely affecting the living condition of these residents. Furthermore, the noise and pollution generated from this large residential structure would negatively impact the local ecological system. Increased vehicular emissions and construction noise would disturb the peace and natural environment, contributing to air and noise pollution that would have harmful effects on both human and wildlife population. As an alternative, we propose that the city consider other uses for this green area that would better serve our community. Outdoor sports facilities such as tennis courts or soccer field, playgrounds for children, and space for dogs to run off leash are in short supply and would be within walking distance for many residents. These alternatives would provide recreational opportunities, enhance community well-being, and preserve the natural beauty of our neighborhood. In light of these substantial concerns, we strongly urge City Council to reject the proposed development at 452 Amido Street. The potential environmental impact, increased traffic congestion, disruption to the cemetery tranquility, degradation of the neighborhood's character, and ecological harm are too significant to ignore. We respectfully request that you consider alternative solutions that align more closely with the needs and values of our community. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and we look forward to the response. Ken and Andrea Donison.
Acquis de droit, bonjour, chers membres de l'audience publique. Je vous écris afin de partager
Dear members
quelques...
of the public hearing, I'm writing to share some of the concerns I and many others have about this project. My acquaintances who live in the area that would be greatly affected by the work on this project are worried about their yards, their family homes, which would now be in the direct vicinity of this new apartment complex. Many families would be deprived of their sense of privacy and of having a private place to relax and enjoy their family gatherings. They have chosen their homes precisely to have this luxury, and this is under great risk of being lost as a result of the project. Although I'm not exactly a resident of the neighborhood, I fully understand their frustrations. I, like many Dieppe residents, have been subject to many new apartment buildings in recent years and have resulted in the loss of many trees and green spaces around Dieppe's trails and parks. What's more, Dieppe is often seen as a place of great charm, filled with trails and green spaces. When I decided to move here from Montreal, Dieppe charmed me with its multitude of paths and trees within easy reach. Since then, especially in recent years, Dieppe has lost this charm to a large number of new apartment blocks. I don't see myself walking Dieppe's trails as much anymore, as it feels more like a refreshing zen-like stroll. There used to be trees on either side of the trails to relax during the walks. What's more, several social networking videos have surfaced in recent days of animals being displaced as a result of these projects. Since Dieppe claims to promote the environment, and in order to maintain its reputation as a quiet, green place, I believe that the city has a duty to take into consideration the voices of people who are very concerned about this new project, as well as many others to come in the future. Sincerely, one of many concerned Dieppe residents, Marcel Thibodeau.
To the proposed project. There have been many positive changes throughout the city of Dieppe over the years. Some of the new development and projects have served the community well and made our city a popular destination for newcomers, new homeowners, and young families. Unfortunately, when it comes to this proposed project, I don't see the site in question as suitable for the development of a multiple unit dwellings due to the negative impact it will have on the residents in the vicinity and the cemetery merely meters away. I was born and raised in Dieppe and feel a deep connection to my city. I found it disheartening when beautiful trees lots are obliterated, sorry about that one, and replaced by concrete buildings and parking lots, similar to the project being proposed. I find it equally disheartening when decision makers lack vision when approving various development and projects and neglect to consider the consequences the decision impose on residents and communities as a whole. It is clear our community is growing at a fast pace. Certainly, we want to encourage developers and contractors to bring new projects to our city, as long as they don't create unfavorable circumstances for our residents and community. Any development or project approved by our city council should at minimum benefit and serve our community, our residents, and the future of the city of Dieppe. I fail to see how this proposed project will serve our residents or community, especially at this site. There should be many other alternatives and projects for this location which would add more value to the community. The amount of traffic such a dwelling will generate is put on one of my concern. It's already an unpleasant experience to attempt a left turn onto Amido Street from Lavoie and Frederick Street. The added traffic from a 152 dwelling unit at this end of Amido Street will definitely create an unpleasant situation for many people in the area. My most pressing concern with this project is the proximity to Our Lady of Calvary Cemetery. I believe cemeteries provide a link to communities past and present. They reflect the history of the person, the family, and the community. My concern is very personal, as I have many family members and friends buried in this cemetery. The most heartbreaking thought is that my 104-year-old mother, who will be celebrating her 105th birthday in July, will soon be laid to rest next to my father in the shadows of a gigantic multiple-unit dwelling. There are many Dieppe residents whose loved ones have been buried at Our Lady of Calvary Cemetery since 1942. My heart especially goes out to the parents who have laid their children to rest in this cemetery. Many of the men and women laid to rest in this cemetery served in World War II, including my father, and many contributed to the growth and development of our fine city, going as far as when it was named Leger Corner. Some of these men and women serve as city councilors or as mayors. Some open new businesses such as pharmacy, grocery store, gas station, corner, convenience stores, and barbershops. Some built homes, some raised families, taught in our schools, attended and supported our churches, served on our own community committees, built and maintained our roads, protected our families and community as police officers and firemen, worked in our local hospital and clinic, just to name a few. In short, they were part of our grassroots development of the city of Dieppe. Their contribution should be celebrated and remembered. The souls laid to rest in this cemetery have earned the right to be remembered as valued members of our community, and their final resting place should not sit in the shadows and commotion of a multi-unit dwelling, especially when it can be easily avoided. Our Lady of Calvary Cemetery is a tranquil final resting place that integrates natural beauty with respect and reverence. The cemetery is a part of a diocese of Moncton, which maintains this beautifully manicured environment that provides peace and solace to visitors. The space is known for this serene environment that thoughtfully blends with the surrounding landscape, offering a serene setting for reflection and remembrance. Building the proposed multi-unit dwelling, and it all could possibly entail, so close to Our Lady of Calvary Cemetery, is in direct opposition to how we should be honoring the very people who built, developed, supported, and love our city while they live. In conclusion, I ask the City Council to consider my comments when making their very important decision. Karen Coromo, 330 Lavoie Street.
Acquis d'Atrois, je suis un résident de Dieppe depuis.
I have been a resident of Dieppe for 20 years. I'm both proud of our growing city, but also very concerned about certain aspects of development without regard for the protection of green spaces and lack of respect. As for the multi-housing development on Amiro, I have serious reservations. Firstly, if I understand the location correctly, this 5-story building will face directly onto the cemetery, and I don't think it's appropriate for families who want to pay their respects to have the site of such an imposing building so close. Secondly, out of respect for the residents who live nearby, I think that the large multi-dwelling unit will cause a lot of inconvenience, noise, traffic, light pollution, snow clearing, etc. I think Dieppe's territory is big enough that a multi-housing project should be allowed in another area where the impacts would be lesser. I strongly recommend that council members oppose this project out of respect for the residents and a more balanced vision, and encourage a more responsible development that respects Dieppe's heritage. Respectfully, Jacques Albert. We're at number 41. So just to explain where we are.
Situated directly across from the site of the proposed project at 452 Amiro Street. I strongly object to the land being used for a proposed based on. The piece of land has many large trees. Keeping these trees is in line with Dieppe's green initiatives. Dieppe has allowed for the destruction of so much natural habitat in the past few years to allow for apartment buildings and the latest new complex along Dieppe Boulevard, etc. It's time to preserve some of the natural space, and 452 Amiro is a pretty spectacular spot that should not be reduced to more concrete. Amiro is already very traffic heavy, and more traffic from a multi-unit dwelling is not what is needed. It is sometimes extremely difficult to pull out from Amont Crescent onto Amiro. Please consider my family's objection. Rebecca Bilodeau.
Plus de 18 mois se sont écoulés depuis le premier jour où nous avons exprimé nos inquiétudes.
More than 18 months have gone by since the first time that we expressed our disagreement with this project. We tried to make you realize that this because of its proximity to the cemetery, this city should not allow this project, and we haven't changed our minds. We recognize that the developer is trying to save a couple of trees, but has asked for a number of variances, and it's an immense building of 114 meters long with the same height as Georges Dumont Hospital. He has to maximize the use of the land to make the purchase profitable. It's huge, it's massive, and it's not very pretty. 18 months ago, we were waiting for the tree bylaw, a false hope that we couldn't see any more big cuts, a hope that trees would be preserved and protected. Well, no, things are worse than ever. Piles of trees are everywhere, land completely devastated, projects slow to start. The mature trees on this site will also be cut down as permitted by the bylaw. I challenge all city employees, councillors, elected and non-elected members of the city of Dieppe with an axe in one hand and a tree bylaw in the other to come and take the first swing of axe through the bark of one of these 100-year-old trees. And when they all cut down and on the ground, then you can explain to me how the tree bylaw makes a difference and how this clear-cutting beneficial effect on the quality of life of citizens of Dieppe. At a time when acres of forest were burning across Canada and people are suffering from extreme heat, Dieppe will be able to explain to the Dieppe that its hands are tied, that the developer had the right to cut everything down, and above all, that we have the best tree bylaw in all of Eastern Canada. I'm told that some trees are too old and their health is precarious. Some of the people in this room are old and sick. Are they less valuable? Has Dieppe just invented the concept of ecological ageism? We know the exceptional benefits of mature trees, but we also know that a mature tree continues to capture CO2 even after its last breath. It provides shade, drains the soil, and continues to maintain the balance of the ecosystem. I'm told that some of the trees have the potential to be invasive, that they're in the wrong class. How can a tree that has shone on this land for over 110 years be a nuisance to the city? What will it invade? Amiro Street, the cemetery, if it hasn't succeeded in invading anything by smelling, I think its project of conquest has rather failed. You know how many toxic substances are produced by a decomposing body? Mercury, formaldehyde, toxic gases, bacteria, and viruses of all sorts are released into the soil and air. Who takes care of the decontamination? The trees. They do it for us free of charge without asking anything in return other than we live in peace. There's a daycare center on these grounds as well. On burial days, children are brought inside to limit noise during funeral ceremonies. We bury about 250 dead a year. Is it realistic to think that the contractor will stop construction work 250 times a year to ensure a respectful environment for bereaved families? I think we have to face up to the fact that this area is not destined to become concrete, and we have to recognize its unique character, which makes it unsuitable for any real estate project. The citizens of Dieppe and the users of the Our Lady of the Calvary Cemetery should not have to pay for a bad purchase made by a Nova Scotia company that has no interest other than economic in this project. Bad purchases can happen in life. The fact that so many exemptions, so many variances are being requested, the fact that so many citizens are opposing them, prove that this large-scale project has no place here. Everything is already in place to turn it into a park, a great opportunity to conserve urban forest and keep a modicum of beauty in our city. I hope that our concerns will be heard and considered for the good of all. Mélanie Urbain. My name is Véronique Cormier and I live in Dieppe.
My
name is Véronique Cormier and I live in Dieppe. I wish to speak out against this project because I'm in despair of the massive deforestation of Dieppe and the surrounding area. It's a good thing that there are conservation agents organizations trying to save sections of forest between Dieppe and Shediac. Otherwise, in a few years, there'd be nothing left and animals would have no habitat. I applauded the tree bylaw last year, thinking that trees were finally being protected. I've noticed that new development are planting a lot of trees, and I applaud their efforts. I think it makes things much prettier and helps reduce heat islands, but it certainly doesn't replace forests or mature trees. The problem is that I've yet to see any developments where the bylaw has encouraged developers to keep trees. It's still clear cutting. The city tells me that it takes time to change habits, referring to the land to be developed. True, but what do you do when the longer you wait, the fewer trees there are left? There aren't many virgin forests left in Dieppe, and given the speed at which the city is developing, in other words, concreting, I don't think there'll be any left for long. What do you do when you don't have millions of dollars to buy a forest to conserve? The only option left is to write this message. And today the focus is on this narrow plot on Amiro Street between houses and a cemetery. The zoning for this plot is institutional, which means that before all this frenzy to build in every little hole, people would never have thought of building an apartment block there. Even though I don't live next door to this lot, I certainly hope that councillors will not vote in favor of a zoning change on June 24th. These trees should be seen as part of our city's heritage, not simply as obstacles to development. Thank you. Véronique Cormier. To whom it may concern, I would like to present my opposition to the Z10 zoning bylaw. This site is part of Dieppe's history, Nuns Convent, and contains a multitude of century-old trees. We mustn't forget that Dieppe is growing fast. Example, the addition of several apartment blocks in the core of Menacelon Dieppe, right behind my backyard. So it's important to preserve green land, especially land considered historic. This land deserves a use other than adding apartments. Is this green land, now rare in Dieppe, worth destroying for financial gain? A concerned Dieppe resident, Vanessa Hickey Dargaville. I'm writing this letter to express my disagreement with the construction of a building at 452 Amiro in Dieppe. I've owned and lived in a house on Lavoie Street since 2007. When we moved to the street, the neighborhood had already been developed for some time. And now they're getting ready to completely denature the neighborhood with a 154-unit, 5-story building complex. In my opinion, the erection of such a 5-story building has no place in this neighborhood. First, the housing in this area is a single and 2-family. This project will completely denature the area. A building of this scale will certainly affect the character of the neighborhood, as it will denature the residential area. Secondly, the environmental impact of such construction is non-negligible. During the construction phase, negative impacts will be mainly related to the construction site, including earthworks, earth movement, noise pollution, and increased traffic to supply the site. Although mitigation measures will be put in place, residents already living in the vicinity will be the most affected. From a landscape point of view, the project area will undergo a landscape mutation, transforming the land into an obnoxious landscape following the erection of a building of this height. A multifamily building will only inconvenience neighbors. Amiro Street is already busy with rush hour traffic. So add to this another 100 cars due to the 154 apartments at 452 Amiro, and it'll be total chaos. I'm against the project on the construction of this project, Nicole Bourgeois. I'm writing to express my opposition to the proposed development at 452 Amiro Street bordering the cemetery. I'm speaking in a personal capacity. As a resident of Dieppe, I'm concerned about the unbridled pace of growth in our municipality. It's essential to ask ourselves whether Dieppe alone should support the region's demographic growth. Other solutions are possible, and it's imperative to diversify the options for welcoming newcomers. What's more, the construction of luxury apartments is no response to the current housing crisis. On the contrary, it only exacerbates rent inflation at a time when Dieppe residents are facing unprecedented tax increases and a deterioration in their quality of life. The environment is part of Dieppe's added value, and it is once again being sacrificed. Moreover, the construction of this building on the edge of the cemetery is fundamentally disrespectful both of the site and its purpose, which should be more institutional in character, and to those who rest or visit there. Yet the site would be ideal for another type of occupation with small units harmoniously distributed in this wooded environment to accommodate seniors in search of serenity. It seems to me that the fate of our elderly weighs less heavily in any case than the logic of profit. Finally, this project will have adverse logistical consequences. Car traffic will increase on the routes concerned, with a rise in dangerous behavior by motorists seeking to avoid the main roads. Excessive speed on Vanier is already a major public safety problem, endangering children playing nearby, especially on the eve of school vacations or school holidays. Please take my consideration into account and reconsider this project. I look forward to receiving your reply. Benoit Bolland.
My name is Robert Arsenault, and I reside at 449 Amiro Street, directly across from your proposed multi-unit dwelling. I have lived at this address for the last 40 years or so years, back when this was a safe street with 2 lanes of traffic. Since then, the city of Dieppe has raised the street and turned it into a 4 lanes of traffic, making it a lot more dangerous for the residents to leave their driveways and turn onto Amiro Street. Now that the city has raised the road existing by my driveway is uphill and very tricky to exit into traffic, even dangerous during high traffic hours, and even though the city has told me they would repair this issue, they never have. Surprise, surprise. My concern for this proposal is safety for residents on Amiro Street. Building the multi-unit dwelling will only increase vehicle traffic, therefore making it very dangerous for residents trying to exit their driveways and also school children trying to get to their bus stop. With another 205 vehicles leaving the property across the street from my driveway will make it almost impossible for me to exit and turn towards Dieppe. Another concern of mine is that the last 5 generations of my family are buried in the cemetery next to this project, and sometimes I go visit my relatives for some peace and tranquility, which will not be possible after this multi-unit dwelling is built. And I'm also concerned with children using the cemetery as a playground and possibly damage the tombstones. There are so many beautiful projects in the city of Dieppe that could use this property for including a green park with these beautiful mature maple trees, or a community garden, to name a few. In closing, I can only hope this project does not move forward, and our councillor, which we voted in, should not agree to this dangerous situation that this will cause for the residents of Amiro Street. Robert Arsenault.
So, Your Worship, that is all the letters that we received for the public hearing. So staff will take all of these into consideration when they write their report. Thank you. Is the developer here? Before that, Your Worship, 8.4, we want to table a petition. We received a petition from Place Horizon, so 24 people signed. So the petition reads as follows. By signing this form, we are asking the city to halt the proposed development of an apartment building on the land at 452 Amiro Street between La Voie and Notre-Dame-du-Calvaire Cemetery, formerly property of the Moncton Diocese, for the following reasons. 1, loss of tranquility for those who are resting there and their visitors. 2, the cutting down of mature and century-old trees. 3, a significant increase in traffic on Amiro Street. And 4, the denaturing of a residential neighborhood. All right. That's it for the comments that were received at City Hall. Now we'll turn to the presentation by the developer. Yes, if you want to come forward.
S'il vous plaît, vous identifiez.
Please identify yourself.
We're live? OK. Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Hello, everyone.
Merci de nous accueillir.
Thank you for allowing us to be here. Your worship, councillors,
Membres du personnel,
staff,
membres du public.
and members of the public.
Permettez-moi de me présenter.
Allow me to introduce myself.
Louis Landry,
I am Louis Landry, one of the developers of the project at 452 Amiro. The other developers are Mr. Lord Parker from Halifax, who's here. Oh, could you please approach the microphone for recording purposes? Thank you. All right, sorry about that.
les autres promoteurs
So the other developers are Mr. Lloyd Parker. He's here from Halifax. Mr. Donald Bundy. Mr. Bundy could not be here tonight.
J'aimerais présenter aussi les
I would like to introduce my
consultants
consultants as well.
aidés avec
Our consultants helped us with the project.
Il s'agit de M.
And
Georges
this,
Lirette,
Mr. Josh Lirette is here with me, Brandon O'Brien,
Spitfire,
project lead Spitfire,
Julien Daigle,
and Julien Daigle, engineer
Daigle Engineering.
at GR Daigle Engineering.
Alors, les faits saillants.
So,
Le
highlights.
développement propose
So the development
aurait 150
proposes we would have 152 units with a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. 15% of them, the units would be affordable based on the standards by the CMHC.
La construction de l'édifice
The construction of the building would be in concrete.
proposer des panneaux solaires,
We are going to also have solar panels on the roof
des endroits communs de l'édifice,
to power the common areas of the building.
des outlets,
There will be outlets
électriques.
to charge electric automobiles as well.
À quelques 300
The land is 350 meters from the city's cycling and pedestrian paths. The location is also directly on a public transit
Avec la
line.
nouvelle configuration de
With the new
du
configuration of the project,
l'édifice au lieu de
one building instead of two,
on réussit à se servir de l'entrée
we
existante.
are able to use the existing driveway
Ça, ça peut démontrer ça, Georges.
for the property. And I think, can you show that on the screen?
Bien, Monsieur Charlet l'avait mentionné plus tôt.
So, and this had been mentioned earlier as well.
En faisant ça,
So by doing this,
de pouvoir dire
we are able to say
que 1,5 acres de
that
terrain entre
more than 1.5 acres of land between Amiro and the development
pas dérangé
will almost not be disturbed
l'entrée.
with the exception of one new driveway.
Nouvelle entrée
And the new driveway
entre les arbres existants.
will run between existing trees. So what that means is that based on the original surface area of the lot of 4 point some acres, almost 26% of the land will be protected in the front part. Now there will be a part on the north end that will not be touched.
Alors, en continuant sur le sujet,
So,
l'édifice au lieu de deux.
so to continue on the subject of one building instead of two, one building allows us to
Le plus loin des cours
place the structure as far as possible from the residences in the area. And this has allowed us to almost eliminate any shade falling on the residences in the area.
Comme mentionné plus tôt,
So as mentioned
de nous servir de
earlier,
l'existant
we were able to use the existing driveway and to preserve the trees on the north side of the property.
Cela nous a aussi
And it's also allowed us to put the entrance on the south side of the property and to preserve a number of trees along the cemetery. It also has also allowed us to create a good buffer zone with a hill and new trees on the north side of the property. So, and I would also like to address a few comments or arguments against that we've heard. There's the NIMBY, the SIMBRI of not in my backyard. And I'll just tell you a brief anecdote here. Do you have pictures of the course? So in 2000, I moved to Dieppe. I bought a house, and behind my property, there were 24 acres of forest. There was deer, lots of birds and rabbits, and there were also trails for walking and so forth. And this land was zoned R2, and I knew it at the time. And I felt at the time that there was a possibility that one day there would be development in my backyard. And that day came. And now I noticed that I had a great forest, and now I see my neighbors.
Que tous les voisins de notre rue ont été impactés ainsi.
And all of the residents of my street were affected this way. So I understand. I know that people like the status quo. You're used to a certain environment. You don't like it to change. But we live in a city that is growing. And today, Dieppe is growing quickly. I'd like to remind council and residents that this site, this land that we're discussing this evening is zoned institutional. It has been zoned as such for a number of years, and it could be the subject of different types of development. Just because this site has not been developed so far, it doesn't mean that development is not acceptable on this land. Examples of acceptable development on this site, unless I'm mistaken, these wouldn't even need a public hearing. The current zoning, you could build a restaurant, medical clinics, several stories high, a plaza, a shopping center, multi-story office buildings, a gym, an arena, or a combination of both, an ambulance or police or fire station, a school, a nursing home. If we were a developer of nursing homes instead of multifamily buildings, all we would have to do is prepare the plans and apply to get our building permit. And who knows? Some developers wouldn't even be as attentive to certain details as we were. Another example, the property could have accommodated the reconstruction of the arena that was on Notre Dame Street. It could have been rebuilt there, and it would have been acceptable. I'd like to come back to the beginning of our application on this property. Let's go back to 2015, when this lot was up for sale. And an offer was put in by Ambulance New-Brunswick. It was for the ambulance center with the communication and IT center for Ambulance NB. The land was acceptable according to the plans and specs of the application. We approached the city to make sure that the zoning was acceptable, and they answered yes. And so we asked if the land was zoned for multifamily buildings, and they answered yes. And since then, the conditions on multifamily dwellings have changed. So Southwest decided it was going to buy the property and offer something to Ambulance New-Brunswick, saying that if Ambulance New-Brunswick didn't get the bid, they would build multi-family dwellings. But after the bid, the Ambulance NB project was cancelled completely. And I have the plans here. I have the plans as submitted by Ambulance NB. And this project was much more disturbing than what we're proposing this evening. The zoning would have allowed it, though, and still would today. So now let's talk about the trees. We heard arguments for the preservation of these trees. There might be a false idea that we were going to just clear cut everything. We were going to level the lot in order to allow the development of this project. Quite the contrary. Right from the beginning, we wanted to preserve as many trees as possible. And we feel that with this this most recent layout, we managed to do so. We succeeded. And there is a tree study, and the engineers use it when they develop the site plan. So far, we have been following the city's tree bylaw, and we have the intention of continuing to follow the bylaw as we build the project. And also, I'd like to ask you to note that contrary to what we've seen on 2 other lots on the city, we did not clear cut the lot before the entry into force of this new tree bylaw. The traffic study. A study was prepared by EXP. I think it was done in April. And the conclusion, and I read, I quote, well, you can put it on the screen perhaps. So I have it highlighted here. It says, it can be observed by the traffic generated will have no significant impact on traffic operations. Please, we've heard one side. Now I'd really like to hear the other side, please. Please. EXP. It's an engineering firm. EXP. If you allow me to continue.
On traffic operations at these intersections. There would be no significant queuing on the intersecting approaches. In addition, the 2 driveways associated with the development would also operate efficiently with no major delays in queuing. Il y avait quand même 2 recommandations dans le
There were
rapport.
2 recommendations in the report. One, that the retaining wall be set back slightly from Amiro Street in order to improve visibility, and to add signs saying no entrance at the exit only driveway. And these recommendations have been included in the most recent version of the plans. Now, the size of the buildings. In terms of height, we propose 5 stories and a flat roof, and this compared to what is allowed on the on a lot. Well, a residence today or a nursing home today that would have 4 floors, but with a pitch roof, the maximum height allowed would be 20 meters. It can be a school, it could be an office building. If you build a roof, a pitch roof, it would be a 20-meter height allowed. That would be allowed. We were talking about height earlier. In our case, most of the building would be 15.96 meters high, but because of the slope of the land, the height would go up to 17.19 meters where the land is lower. So these 20 meters of height could be 10 meters away from the backyard of the neighbors, unless I'm mistaken. The project that we are proposing this evening puts the building the furthest possible away from the neighbors' backyards. Now, in terms of the length of the building, the architects changed the look of it by adding different design features to different parts of the building. And I think they succeeded. In summary, we feel that this project will be positive for residents and taxpayers. The development will be positive for people who are looking to rent. It will help to fill a need. And we are saving more than 1.5 acres of land on Amiro Street that will be preserved. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Questions from council? No questions? Okay. Thank you. Questions? Councillor Godbout, thank you. Sorry, I was slow. I'm going to ask the same question I asked the staff. This lot is a place of choice because of its height and in future development of the city. It's going to be part of the landscape of the cityscape. There is discretion from council to limit multifamily dwellings, in part because they want to have an impact and they want to have their word to say in what the future of the city will look, the future cityscape. So why is this project good for this city? Why would this building, why should it be a part of the landscape of our city? Because this will become dominant in future years. Why should it be? Why should it be this building? Why should it be this project on this site? Why does this fit well? Well, my impression, my opinion, is when you drive along Amiro, coming from Moncton, you're going to see a really nice building. Whether it's an apartment building or a nursing home or an arena, I think that apartments belong there as well as anywhere else. And the impact of the cemetery, the proximity of the cemetery, does this have an influence? Have you priorized the impact of this on the cemetery? Well, instead of being on the north side of the site, we're putting the building on the south side to give privacy, to give a better buffer to the residents to the north of the site. Now, for the cemetery, well, that's personal opinion. Is it going to affect the cemetery? It's a personal opinion. Well, I'm asking the question because I think we can have a discussion. I'm interested in knowing what you think. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from council? If not, thank you. And thank you for your presentations. Thank you for the information. And we will continue on with the meeting. But you're all welcome to stay. So now we're on number 9, questions by members of the public. Would anybody have a question other than what's already been discussed this evening? Is it a new item? Yes. It's a new series of questions on this project. These are arguments that have not yet been presented. And I'm a citizen of Dieppe. I have the right to speak.
Allez-y.
Merci.
Go ahead. Good evening. My name is Paul Albert. I'm a resident of Dieppe, and I represent the citizens of our neighborhood who are against this project of a building at 452 Amiro. On June 4th, we heard that a multi-unit dwelling was being proposed of this lot beside the cemetery. This was the first residence of the Archdiocese of Moncton. The building was between the mature trees and was in harmony with the peaceful nature of the neighborhood. Citizens settled in this neighborhood because of this, and even because of it. The building that occupied a small space was unfortunately demolished in 2017 by the new owners in order to pay lesser taxes and to try and make a different project. This new project with 152 apartments is one of the 5 biggest real estate projects in Dieppe. In your municipal development plan, under residential development along the southern part of Amiraux and Dover, it reads, Principle 3, the council has as a principle to recognize the residential and semi-rural character of the southern part of Amiraux Street. Principle 4, council has as a principle to regulate residential development and to minimize density along the southern part of Amiraux, and the development of multifamily dwellings, Principle 8, and I quote, Council has as a principle that all new multifamily dwellings respect urban design criteria of the plan so that they are in harmony with the character of the neighborhood. Also, in your municipal plan, under infilling development in residential, Principle 9, Proposal 1, it is proposed that the City Council develop and maintain guidelines on infilling in order to promote harmony and a good integration of this in residential neighborhoods. You say that the Dieppe development will preserve the natural heritage and that new buildings will be compatible with what surrounds it through density, height, and volume. Taken from your municipal plan, Bill. You say you are a city that will reduce the environmental impact and improve the quality of life of the residents. Most of us have chosen to establish here because of the francophone nature, the family nature, and its proximity to nature. This project does not correspond to the principles of development in your municipal development plan. Dieppe is developing very quickly. Projects are multiplying. Woodlots and forests are disappearing. Buildings are set up here and there throughout the city. There are many examples. We are concerned with reason about the future of our city. One of the reasons for this lack of harmony are all the number of variances often accepted by the city. For this project, the developer does not asking for less than 6 variances. He corrected us to say there were only 4 earlier, but I'd like to have more details on the variance for the driveways that are not variances now. I don't think that was clear. So there's a variance for the height, the orientation, the position of the public entrance, the position of the amenities, the width of the access roads, the high driveways that are no longer exceptions, and the number of bicycle spaces that are no longer need a variance. So whether it's 6 or 4, 6, it's going around the rules, 6 or 4. What are the use of having bylaws if you can get around them each time? And this is for economic reasons for the developer and the city coffers. What do citizens get out of this? Why give so many gifts to the developer? The citizens feel betrayed by you. This project is completely out of its zone, is proposed by a developer, has already been authorized by you in the first stages in a low density neighborhood, and the developer passes before the citizens with all of these variances. The owners paid too much in 2015 for then demolishing a city that had a great value. This is why we are here today. The developer wants to develop a project that is much too ambitious and out of scope. We have other reasons to be against this project. This building will be less than 40 feet away from the closest grave. In the photos that we saw from Charles Etienne, the planner, Charles Etienne, they were trick photos actually, because you could only see this enormous grassy area, but in fact, it's an enormous cemetery that's right there on the southern side. These were tricked photos presented by the city. So this building will be 40 feet from the closest tombs. More than 10,000 people are in these Catholic cemeteries, and more than 250 are buried every year. It's in this cemetery we have buried our parents, our friends, our veterans, our children. And there's the Angels Cemetery very close. 90 apartments at least will have a view right over the cemetery. The tenants will be able to see people who come in and leave, people coming to the cemetery. The city talks about densification of certain central areas. The project is not in a zone identified in municipal plan as being in a zone where we're looking to increase the density. So the same question was asked earlier, and it was in the most recent DS Mag. Actually, the same question was asked. People will need a car. People who want to live here. There will be nothing that's walkable. You'll need a car. 204 parking spaces will be built. That's a quarter of the 4.5-acre lot that will be paved. So that'll be a hot spot right in the middle of a residential area. Amiro Street is very busy. There's a lot of traffic. Cars drive fast. We live there. We use it every day. And there's a curve right there, and it's a low visibility. And adding 204 cars is just going to worsen the problem, no matter what are the conclusions of your traffic impact study. In its most recent version of Dieppe Mag, there was a paragraph on the myths on tree cutting. You said that you're not cutting any trees. That your hands are tied, that it's not your fault, that you aren't the bad guys. It's the owners of the land that are cutting trees. A myth is a legend, something that's imaginary. The cutting of trees in Dieppe is very real. The reality is that tree bylaw has not changed anything in the city's landscape. All we see is tree cutting. The tree bylaw is not preventing the cutting of many trees on different lots. You have all of the means and the right to adopt bylaws that would make a real difference. Does the city belong to the developer? That's a question something you can wonder. We're not against development. We're against this project, which doesn't have its place close to our deceased. It does not have a place amongst mature trees. It doesn't fit in your development plan. You have all of the reasons to refuse it. For all of these reasons, we ask our municipal councillors who represent us, who are here this evening, who are our voice, to refuse this project. There is perhaps contrary to what other employees when you're afraid of being sued perhaps by the developer if you refuse the project. Is that possible? It's your right to refuse the whole project. There is no reason to sue. There's been no history in New Brunswick, in the whole history of New Brunswick, where a developer has won a case in this kind of context. We're talking about a site and not a land. There's something particular. This is a site. It has a heritage. It has a riches, a long history in the neighborhood and in the city of Dieppe. It's not just a lot, a lot. It's a site that to be preserved. And so we ask council to to ask for an exchange of with the developer and develop a park, an urban park in this spot instead. We'd like to remind you that this project is in the backyard of all of our deceased who are buried there now and in future. We'd like to remind you that beyond the tree bylaw, we want to keep our trees. So in closing, in hoping that you have listened to our concerns for the well-being of our city and our citizens. Thank you.
Fonctionne-tu? Oui.
Oui.
Does this work? Yes. Please identify yourself. Nicolas Goyette. I'm at 121. I'm a proud Dieppe resident. This is the first time that I've done this, so in terms of the developer's plans, he mentioned that the affordability is so it would be like $1,600 in Dieppe. It's not. So I want more details on the affordability aspect of his plan. And is he receiving money from CMHC? I haven't seen any programs that he's getting funding from. And Aura Management seems like a young company. They've never conducted a big project like this one. So my question is, are they ready to deal with such a major project? And the engineering firm that did the traffic study, I would like to know what country did that, or what company did that rather. I'd also like to know what the impact will be on transportation and on transit. I've used transit in the past, so I'd like to know what, I have a little bit more detail about that. And there were things that were saying, you know, despite what he was, the gentleman was saying, this is not a NIMBY phenomenon. It's about respecting the dead. My great-grandfather is in the cemetery. It's respecting the fact that, you know, that my grandmother, who currently has Alzheimer's, that she can be buried where she wants to be before she starts to decline. You know, and I appreciate the comment about, you know, what aboutism, but that's not a strong argument in my view there, so. Frédéric Nabour, Dieppe resident. There's a lot of people around this table that I have a lot of respect for. I want to start with that. I want to come at this from a different angle. I had prepared something to read to you, but you know, a lot of things had been said 10 times better than I could have said them. So I don't live on Lavoie Street. I don't know anybody buried in the cemetery. I've never even been to the cemetery. My family and I have 2 stores, and we employ about 120 people. So I really think that economic development is very important. However, I'm not happy to see this development in the current location. I think it's an important project, but I think it's in the wrong place. I don't know you all personally. I don't think anyone here has the necessary skills to make an enlightened choice, you know, with regard to engineering and, you know, but one thing that I do know is this: you are elected officials. You've been elected by people who are in the room, by the people who sent you letters, and 100% of the comments that were brought are against this project. So I think it's important that you listen to these people. I'm not used to coming to City Hall meetings, but I don't think there are this many people that usually turn up. And I think, you know, we have young people here as well. We have the elite of tomorrow, people who will, maybe the councillors of tomorrow. So please make a decision so that these people continue to be proud of their city and that they won't want to go elsewhere. I promise to be short. So quickly, a quick comment to Mr. Landry, who talked about, you know, the forest behind his place that's now been developed, and he has a single family dwelling. It's very unfortunate that he had to experience that. But I wonder what he would think if there was a 5-story building behind him. And Councillor Jeannet, this has been a long meeting, but you talked about earlier about a worry about on Thomas Street, crime and traffic. But I live on Centrale Street, and when I used to come home, I felt like I was crossing a forest, but now I avoid, you know, I see cars parked in the street. You know, there have been dozens of apartment blocks that have built on Centrale Street. So thank you very much. I hope that you will vote against this project.
Bonsoir, je
Good
m'appelle.
evening, Tanya Doucette. I live on Centrale Street in Dieppe. And I'm not speaking just for myself, but on behalf of everybody who can't be here tonight. There are a lot of families here in Dieppe. We have mothers who are putting their kids to bed. There are lots of people who couldn't come to this meeting because they're too tired or for whatever reason. Now, I listened to all the letters, and I agree with all these letters that are opposed to the project. Now, I am not somebody who tends to come to these types of meetings. I do follow what's going on in the city, though. And I was happy to hear that there was a new tree bylaw. Recently, I filled out a survey that was asking, what do we want in Dieppe? So in the survey, they asked, do you want more green space? I said, yes, of course. And then all of a sudden, on Centrale Street, just beside myself, everything was clear cut. And now we have buildings, new buildings. And I understand there's a housing crisis. I understand that Dieppe is expanding. I understand that areas have been identified as development areas. But I was very surprised to hear about this project. You know, they were talking about cutting down trees. I was not even aware that the Archdiocese building had been demolished. I went by the site, and it's a very beautiful site. It's just beside the cemetery. It doesn't make any sense to me that a 5-story building should be there. It just doesn't fit. It makes no sense to me. And then I read in the Infomag about the myth concerning trees. So the myth, the city does not cut trees on land that does not belong to it. It's the owners of private property who cut down trees for the purpose of building high-density multifamily dwellings. So I read that, and I said, what is that about? Is the city saying it's not our fault, it's owner's fault? You know, the way that I interpret that is, you know, I say, you know, and I say that without all due respect to, you know, you councillors, you are the ones who have the power. You're here to listen to us. You heard all the comments. Now, it seems to me that you are able to stop this project. You have everything that you need. You're able to create bylaws. If the tree bylaw is not enough, we'll make another one. Do something so that historic sites are preserved, that cemeteries, you know, that people can go there to gather, and that space is, you know, we need a balance. We need a balance between the housing crisis, but also the vision for Dieppe. What do we want as residents? We want to feel good. We want to have green spaces. We don't want to just cut down trees. You know, A 100-year-old tree is not the same thing as a little birch tree that you cut down. It's not the same thing. So yes, an owner can plant more trees, but it's not the same thing. So I ask you, please take the time to weigh all of this, everything that's been said, listen to the people who spoke, and think that there are other people who didn't make comments and who disagree with this project. Thank you. Mélanie Urbain. I promise you, I have 2 points that weren't discussed. And, you know, it's sad that, you know, I put my heart and my soul in my letter, and but I have 2 questions. So first of all, on the 8 documents and the plans that are available, which would be available to the public? So, you know, the shading study, the traffic study. I don't know what the other documents were called. There were 8 of them. Who can help us with that? Okay, well, maybe while you're looking for the answer, I can maybe explain my question. I just want the councillors to understand, you know, that on June 4th, you know, the lucky ones who live within 100 meters and that are, you know, we received a letter through the mail, and there was one sentence. We were just told, it didn't say hello, it just said, you know, please be notified that there's a project. We weren't told what, we weren't given any information, but give us a comment before June 19th. So that's all we received. So imagine you have 15 days to find information on what's going to happen, what's going to be happening. It's a race against time. You know, we have to take time from work to organize meetings with city officials. It's not always pleasant, I'm sorry to say, but we try to get information, but they don't give us information because they're waiting for the green light. And I was told it was from the clerk. So now we're June 24th, and I still don't have information. I don't have the shading study. I need to know, am I going to be, you know, spending the rest of my life in shade, under the shade? You know, if you want information, you have to give me that. If you want my response, you have to give me information, but I wasn't given anything. Oh, well, that's not true, actually. I did get the preliminary map. And, you know, of the 8 houses that are directly impacted, 75% are unilingual Anglophone, and it took us 4 days. So Anglophones only had 4 days to respond to the translated document. So this is 2024. You know, 85% of new immigrants to New Brunswick were Anglophone. We have to translate everything simultaneously, because there are a lot of people who are Anglophones. So all that to say, so I started by saying, by accusing you of having all the information, that we didn't have any information, but now I'm learning that the councillors don't have the information either. So in short, my question is, am I going to get that information? Am I going to get something? On May 28th, no, I lied a bit. I received my letter June 4th, but I was at the hearing and I knew that we were going to be getting something. So we had a meeting with Mr. Alexandre on the 27th, and on the 28th, we asked for the documents, and we received an email saying, the clerk is reflecting on whether or not you can have these documents. And so I made an access for information, and I was told that we have 30 days to respond. And well, Mr. Simal, that you're the one who told me that. So, well, listen, I gave notice. or confirmation of receipt, and I informed you that, yes, we have 30 days to respond. I didn't say I was going to take 30 days to respond, but yes, there is a process, and yes, we have to follow that process, and we're going to follow the process. I don't have a date at which you're going to receive the documents, but I can tell you that we're going to be following the rules, and you will have the documents. The documents that you're entitled to under legislation. Well, do you find that acceptable and democratic that you told me, 12 working days before I can take, and you have 30 days to give the information? Like, well, it's part of life. That's the law. We have lots of files to manage, and your request generates a lot of work as well. And I'm responsible for access to information requests, and I know I'm following the act. So earlier, Mr. Landry said that he was going to give the information to the councillor who asked for it. So is it from that time on? Do I have to try to bribe my councillor to get the information? I mean, you guys are working for us. The goal is not to hide things. It's to follow the rules, and we're going to follow the rules. It's not more complicated. It's no more complicated than that. Okay. Well, listen, I have a final question then. How do you explain that this public hearing was posted on the city's website on May 27 at 10:40, where the date to set the public hearing was, why was the date posted even before the council could discuss and vote on the question? I don't have the answers to. I can check. I can't answer you right now, but I can send you a response by email. No problem. And not within 30 days, no. Sorry. Listen, I mean, you invited 30,000 people to a meeting without having the permission of your councillors. I mean, you do have a response for me. I don't have an answer for you. It's a process that's automatic, and I'm not necessarily involved in that process, but that's why I have to check some things. Well, what I was able to find, and it's hard to find information, but you had 21 days between the moment where you posted the date and so if you had followed your rule, the public hearing would have been on July 1st, and it would have been pushed back to mid-July. So now you have the answer, you just don't want to give it to me. It could, or listen, if I had the answer, I would give it to you right away, but I'll go and check. All right, well, I will wait for your response. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to speak in English if that's okay. I've had my phones on all night and I'm doing pretty good. Actually,
you're allowed a break from the headphones.
Oh yeah, no, they're pretty good. They work well.
Just a second. We have to have a resolution to continue after 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Sometimes we do it right, I guess. So tonight we need to have a resolution to go after 10 o'clock.
Do you want me to vote?
No, just
no, we can do that on our own. We're good there.
I'm addressing the question to the mayor, so he'll manage this.
So c'est proposé par le conseiller Lantaigne, appuyé par la conseillère.
So proposed by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor Godbout, so that we continue past 10 o'clock. That's what the motion is. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Against, nay. All right, we'll continue.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm not going to talk long. I just, nobody read my letter, so I thought I'd get up. I did send a letter in, and my name is James, anyway, James Small from Dieppe. And I kept listening, and I never heard my letter read. So I said to my wife, I said, well, I'm going to get up and just, I won't keep you. One of the things I just want to bring up, and I heard everything, everybody speak tonight, and it's great that we have an opportunity and we live in a country where we can voice our opinion without getting into trouble. But I live in the area. It's a beautiful area, and I'm wondering if the city and the developer who's here, if there was ever a talk or a proposal to do some kind of a land swap. Like, they spent a lot of money on this land when they bought it, $700,000-$800,000 back in 2015. Like, they can't lose their money. Like, they have a lot of money tied up. I mean, as a city and a council, you buy and sell land all the time. You do it all the time. You expropriate land, you get land. I mean, that's part of a growing city. I mean, work some kind of a deal with this gentleman, buy their land, sell them another piece of land somewhere. I'm not good in mathematics here, but I mean, he can't lose his investment. And there's thousands of acres I think Dieppe has access to of land. And as I say, you buy and sell land all the time. Make some kind of proposal, and maybe some kind of a land swap. I don't know where all the land is in Dieppe, but I just wanted to throw that out there, because that way he gets a piece of land, and I'm sure this 4 acres of land there, the city can do something with it. It's not swampland. It's beautiful land, and I don't know if anybody's ever taken the time to actually walk the graveyard in the evening and go back there. It's beautiful after supper. It is absolutely beautiful. You look out over the city and the sun is going down, and we talk about serenity tonight. I've heard that word, serenity. And there really is a serenity in that graveyard. Like everybody in here, we've got somebody that's buried in there. But take the time and just go have a look. This mega project stuck next to a graveyard it's hard to believe that this is being considered. Again, I'm not trying to take anything away from the developer here, but it doesn't fit. I take a 10.5 shoe. If I buy a size 9, it's not going to work. It's just not going to fit. And really, just the councillors, like, you're all from Dieppe, obviously. Take an evening and go up and walk the graveyard. Just take a walk from the front to the back. It's a beautiful spot. And to see that being developed into a mega project, and I was listening about the parking spaces. Like, what about all the visitors that come and visit these people in there? 152, 154 apartments. I actually visualized the graveyard as going to be a parking spot. Because where are the visitors going to go? The developer has all the parking for the tenants, but they probably have friends, these tenants. And if there's kids in there, where are the kids going to play? It's going to be the graveyard. And we have kids in our neighborhood, and they chalk the streets. Are they going to be chalking the gravestones? And, I'm not trying to be smart or funny, but you got to consider that. You got to look at all that. Anyway, I'm not going to talk. It's past 10 o'clock, but take some time and just go walk the graveyard in the evening and visualize a Georges Dumont sitting in there. That's what it's going to be. Merci beaucoup. Hein?
Alors, s'il n'y a personne d'autre, on va retourner.
If there are no further comments, we'll go back to the agenda.
Vous êtes bienvenus pour demeurer sur place.
You're welcome to stay with us.
Soit ça ou nous tiendre au courant du
Either that or
du pointage dans le match de hockey.
tell us who's winning the hockey. Give it's 1-1. Thank you. Okay, we're aware then. It's 1-1. Let's take a 5-minute health break.
On OK, ça va? On continue, item
Okay.
numéro 9.
We're now at number 9. No, we've done number 9. Oh, we've done number 9. Okay, more than once? Number 10. So we're the adoption of the minutes of the last regular council meeting. It's been moved by Councillor Turgeon, seconded by Councillor Leboutillier on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. The minutes of the last meeting are accepted as presented. Your worship, we're now at number 11. So I'm pleased to present the 2023 annual report. This report is presented under Section 105 under the Local Governments Act and the Rules 2015-54 that talks about the achievements of the city over the last year. So there's these talks about the city, the tax base, the tax rate, and the fees. There's also details on council, on grants and subsidies, and the different types and costs of services offered. You can also find the audited financial statements for 2023 adopted on April 22nd. I would invite you to consult this report. It'll be available on the website starting tomorrow, so you can learn more about all of the achievements of the city in 2023. And this is for your adoption this evening. Thank you. So for the recent reading of the resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Microphone, please. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the 2023 annual report of the City of Dieppe, and I so move. And moved by and seconded on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. We're now at item 11.2, community development. This week, as you well know, is the Jeux de l'Acadie that are being held in the Bouctache area. Dieppe will host the games in 2025. So a memorandum of understanding has been developed between the organizing committee and the municipality. This also highlights the elements of the surplus or deficit. The city wanted to protect its interests. So all of the elements are in this document that is added to the memorandum. And this is for your signature, and your approval this evening for the Jeux de l'Acadie that will be held here in 2025. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Brideau. Your Worship, that Council authorized the municipal signing officers to sign the memorandum of understanding between the City of Dieppe and the Société des Jeux de l'Acadie in order to hold the Finale des Jeux de l'Acadie in Dieppe in June 2025. And I so move. Been moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Genet on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented, which brings us to 11.3, appointments. And this is an appointment to the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee. You have two nominations here, Paulette Léonel and Germaine Maillot. They're being recommended as members of the Dieppe Age-Friendly Advisory Committee for a 2-year term, and they've been recommended following a request for interest. And I think it's the renewals of two people, yes. So this is for your approval. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council appoint Paulette Léonard and Germaine Maillet as members of the Dieppe Age-Friendly Advisory Committee for a 2nd term commencing on July 1st, 2024 and ending on June 30th, 2026. And I so move it, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. 12.1, bylaw C.1 2024 relating to traffic and parking. And Mr. Simard has a briefing to give us. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We're at the first reading this evening by title only. This is an amendment of the parking on Fox Creek. We want to change it to prohibit parking on Fox Creek Road on both sides of the road at all times. And the amendment is on page 333 of your package. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Jeannin. Thank you, Your Worship. It's bylaw C-1 2024, a bylaw relating to traffic and parking in the city of Dieppe. And I so move it in first reading by title only. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Jeannin, seconded by Councillor Jeannin, Le Boutier on the question. I have a question. Are we going to advise the residents of that street of the parking ban? Are we going to advise them? Surely, we are. Surely. And as you know, we're going to build a trail on one side along Fox Creek, so we'll make sure that the information has been given out. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, no, nay. It's carried as presented. And now we're at 12.1.1. No, we're at second reading. Second reading. Bylaw C-1 2024, a bylaw relating to traffic and parking in the city of Dieppe. And I so move it in second reading by title only. Thank you. It's been moved by in second reading by title. And it's seconded by Councillor Le Boutier on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. So that takes care of first and second reading, which brings us to notices of motion. Yes, there is one notice of motion, Your Worship, on policy L-12, the grant, the Dieppe's Partner School Grant Program that was presented to you, to the Strategy and Policy Committee last week. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lantaigne. He likes to read these notices of motion. Councillor Lantaigne. Thank you, Your Worship. I give notice that policy L-12 2024, entitled Policy Governing the City of Dieppe's Partner School Grant Program, be introduced for adoption at a future meeting of Council. Thank you. And inquiries and announcement by members of Council? Your mic is on, so you might as well start. Okay. Nothing this evening. I just want to, I know it's late. I want to congratulate and point out the initiative. There was a press conference this morning. There was a memorandum under the Union of Municipalities and the Association Francophone des Municipalités. It's a historical agreement, and the both are going to work together on different issues. So the strength is in numbers. I'd like to congratulate the two for this initiative. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Godbout. Thank you. On the weekend, I had the pleasure of participating in the 100th anniversary of the nuns of the Notre-Dame du Sacré-Cœur, a great celebration that recognized their important contribution to the community. It was very pleasant, and it was very moving as well to recognize all of the things and all of the opportunities that I got in my life that were because of the mission of this congregation. So the spread of the French language and culture, music, the different things that were contributed by the congregation. A number of them were teachers in schools in the communities. They worked with a lot of people in the community. So it was quite a pleasure to represent City. And I'd like to thank cities who have now left, but who would like to thank the great number of participants who came here this evening to speak to us and who stayed during the 4 hours, who listened to all of the comments and then contributed to the discussion. And I think when we're a little more rested, we'll be able to think about what we heard and really point, remember everything that's important. And I'd like to thank the staff that stay to allow this participation of our citizens. So thank you. It's not always easy to listen to things, even for us as councillors. So thank you to all. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. No, I have nothing this evening. Thank you. Have a great week. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. No, I have nothing either. Have a great week, everyone. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Over the next few weeks, I would like to prepare a motion on noise. You've received some correspondence that I received from Fredericton. And I think if the city of Fredericton was able to put forth a motion against noise, well, then I said, well, what's going to prevent us from acting here in Dieppe? Because so far we've been waiting for the province to adopt amendments, and they're not doing so. So I think, well, let's just go. Let's do it. Mr. Simard? Yeah, well, the difference between Dieppe and Fredericton is that Fredericton has their own police force. So when council talks to the police in Fredericton, it's a municipal police force. Municipal police force listens to council. Here it's the RCMP that offers the service to the city of Dieppe, and it's much harder to be listened to by the RCMP, and that's the difference. Well, yeah, but the police is the police, whether it's a municipal force or a federal one. I mean, who's paying for their services currently? The police, yes, it's true. That's true, Councillor Brideau. But you must understand that the bosses of the RCMP are not the same bosses of the municipal police force in Fredericton. It's not the same influence at all. Fredericton was able to adopt a bylaw for the noise, a noise bylaw, because they have their own police officers which are equipped to stop vehicles, and they can give tickets, and they announced, the municipal police force in Fredericton announced that they were going to stop doing so because it was too expensive. So yes, it takes a lot of resources. It takes vehicles, it takes resources on the roads, and on the resources at the time of day where there's people on the road. So, and if I remember certain things from 50 years ago, every time in this situation, every time you give a ticket to somebody, you recertify the equipment, the piece of equipment, the tool, the decibel meter. It's a little bit like the breathalyzer. It has to be calibrated each time regularly. And I know people who challenged it and they won their challenge. So we're not going to move forward. Well, I saw the email that you received, and is it something that is still going on in Fredericton? Did you get the most latest information from council? I have a meeting with the CAO of Fredericton this week on next Wednesday. This week on Wednesday, so I'll ask the question, because I met Councillor McCarthy 2 weeks ago, and at a funeral, but he said, I can send you a copy of our bylaw. Okay, great. Okay, we'll get it then. We'll wait for it. Thank you. Councillor Janelle. Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to congratulate all the new graduates from Mathieu Martin and from CCNB, and I wish them all of the best and successful future. And this weekend, on a personal note, but it's related to the city, I went to Fundy National Park, and I noticed that at the entrance, there's a natural pollinator garden, and Neil Vincent looked after it. They took the effort to put some native plants and all sorts of little signs that give the names in French, English, and Mi'kmaq. And, there's the different kinds of bees as well. I mean, there's all sorts of little plants. I took some pictures, so maybe if Alexandre wants to have a look at them, and maybe it could be inspired, and maybe they could use that somewhere else, seeing as we're looking on increasing the biodiversity here in the city. Thank you. Councillor de Boutillier. Yes, I would just like to get information and follow up. I don't know if you've had time to look at the Centrale in Chartersville area for the lighting, the lighting, the adding of a light, of a street light. The request was made to NB Power. I don't know where it's at, but I'll follow up on it. Thank you. So what we've asked, I think it's on the southwest corner. There's a pole there, so we ask that they install a street light on that pole. So we put in the request. And I'll follow up to see where they're at. Thank you, and I'd like to thank on the trail we've put some signs with there's some pedestrian crosswalks in the parks. It's really much safer. It's a big difference. So I'd like to thank you. Thank you for listening to us, and it has an impact, and the residents really like it. Thank you, and have a great evening, everyone. Thank you, Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. Just very quickly, a lot of dust. I've had a lot of complaints about construction dust. I think we should take a deposit from developers, and if they can't reduce the dust, then we should keep that money ourselves and charge them for it, because when you're in a residential neighborhood and they're building a tower there, it creates a lot of dust. I know we have a bylaw, but they don't seem to want to follow it. Thank you. Thank you. Who's taking this one? Stéphane, you're taking note? Thank you to everyone for your enormous patience, and I hope the good team wins.